I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me, but they hate from inside. You see, hate themselves as society, so I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen. Oh, the irony to hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, it's killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So do better, work hard under pressure. If you got no time, work smarter than ever. Don't ever let them tell you that you can't ever say never. And turn your mind into the truest to go-getters. Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always honest. There ain't no way I'm ever stopping. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top. Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up, play the game, bruh. Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always honest. There ain't no way I'm ever stopping. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top. I'm always flirting with pain. She like.
All right. Hello. We are live. We need a picture for Keelan guy though. This doesn't carry over the fancy picture. Does it? How are you doing tonight? How's everyone in chat doing?
I am fantastic. Had a little pregame show for the
I totally just muted you while you're in the middle of that too, so
Oh no.
it's
It's okay. We're very professional commentators here.
Yeah, so if you're watching this and if Blue is watching this,
I'm sorry in advance.
yeah, I set up my stuff so early that it was still when we were in testing. So I am missing some of the stuff. So you won't really see Keelan guy. I mean, I guess I could, let's see. If I just put the same image source over. My problem is I don't think it'll be big enough. Yeah, it's just a small little square.
Hey, nothing wrong with a small little square.
It's an average size square.
Hey, that'll do.
All right.
Yeah, I love it. Beautiful.
And AQZ vibes. I mean, what? All right, we have about 4 minutes to go here. How are you preparing, Sir Keelan?
Well, I'm not preparing whatsoever. I'm just hanging out and refreshing the player count. We're up to 49 players. It's a little bit smaller than we've seen for some of these Wednesday weeklies, and definitely smaller than the Monday massive one at the moment. But the upside on that for the players who are participating is for those of them who are still trying to snag their invite for the invitational, it's going to be slightly better chances. So yeah, but 3 minutes to go. I'm hoping a couple more people will still join in, and hoping that we won't have too many early disconnects either.
That is always good to hope for. You don't have any beverage or anything to
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is of course the AWOL broadcast. 1 second. Sponsored by White Monster. I think Cole and I have bonded a little bit over that, of course. But no. Jokes aside, we don't have any sponsors. Any drinks are allowed here, absolutely. And yeah, no, just hanging out, and yeah, should be a good one. Late in the night for me, but it's always fun to hang out for some AWOL.
I have unfortunate news that I am rebranding myself and have Red Bull today. I am no longer the White Monster, which was a name that I did not give myself. So I am now claiming my name and putting Red Bull Rebel. So
It's just like most normal names. You might not have given it to yourself, but on some level, it was yours, right?
I guess people that were not in on the joke probably thought something different. Maybe, who knows?
I think so too.
Which I mean, I guess is technically true, but I don't really want to, celebrate that. So,
That's fair.
so we see this tournament is hosted by Neg QZ AQZ Starshine Simon. We
Yeah,
have
I don't know what to tell you about that.
we have Runefolk and Pandy Andy from AQZ in here. Why no freeloader today? Do you know the details?
Freeloader is the main person streaming the No Unique Championship at the moment, so I would just imagine that he's tired after that, reasonably so, I would say. And managing a stream with different scenes for the first time as well. Big thanks to Pandy for creating some cool setups for us for that, but definitely a little bit challenging, I guess, getting started with something new like that, or increasing the level of effort that goes in sometimes. But yeah, went pretty well. But I can definitely imagine that they're tired, which is pretty reasonable. But I'm really impressed in general. One, there's a lot of people who were playing in that event, the No Unique Championship, who are showing up to this event as well, including our undefeated player there, A.W.O.L, which is pretty cool. But just tons of players from different teams as well. And just scrolling through this participants list, like I recognize virtually every name, and they're all names that I wouldn't be really surprised seeing in like an undefeated bracket near the late stages of a tournament. So this one's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, there are a lot of great names in the bracket already, and some newer names that I've had popped up on events recently.
Mhm.
So we are at 6 minutes or 6 minutes, 6 p.m. exactly. So a match should be popping up here in a second.
Yep.
If you are in chat, if you can let us know if anything is too loud, too quiet, or broken entirely, would appreciate it. But I think we're about to hop into a game here. Are you gonna be the Batman for this stream and have the team dossier up?
Hey, I can be whatever you want me to be. If that is Batman. But
All
yeah,
right.
we have a ton of different teams participating. I don't have a dossier entry for all of them. Uh, some teams haven't reached out to me yet, or haven't gotten back with full details yet, which we're waiting on. But yeah, in general, we know about most of them at least, which is pretty cool. But yeah, do you have a table that you'd like to jump in on, or should I try to find one?
I am jumping in on table 5. Belteshazzar. Want to see if he is still playing Cojo. He's
Yes.
missed a couple of the Ace events, and then Impuissant is also on there. Very
Excellent
French
players, both
name.
of them.
Yep, very French name for an American player.
I agree, totally. Uh, Scary player as well. My recollection, I mean, I've run into them a couple times in events myself. Typically Fen Festival, so excited to see where will there be some partying happening? Are we going to a rave, Cole?
I hate raves. I hate parties. I'm still loading game art, so I'm refreshing here for the stream. Once it's loaded in, you'll be able to see.
Yep, it's loaded in now, and oh wow, starting out with the Fen player immediately deploying a super awesome unique paper herald and resupplies a magical training for a pretty sick turn one. Cojo is going to fight back, Axiom Salvager onto the companion side, Chiron onto the hero side, so it's a double advance for the Cojo versus a bunch of card advantage for Fen.
Yeah, I got the visualization up. We're here fixing this very annoying time window. I am the time guy, and I love my seeing the clocks, but it is very annoying to work with on streams. So
That's fair. I know Pandy's been celebrating having learned how to do that from you guys over here from the AWOL broadcast, at least. That's above my pay grade, but I'm happy that you're here to sort it out for me.
yeah, I think a while ago I submitted a suggestion to where we could have some kind of view where if we hit full screen, we can have the times. But right now it only has the card count. And
Check
shoo,
this out.
I
All of
know.
the uniques have now been seen by Ampuissant, our Fen player. Crazy card advantage on all of these. One, the Esmeralda that was just played, it both returns a spell from reserve to their hand when they play it from hand, also resupplies from anywhere, which is super sweet. Fen in general, a deck that loves to make use of resupply effects, both because of good support abilities in general, but especially the ones discounting subsequent plays, but haven't seen any of those yet, or at least quite yet. But yeah, it looks very solid for both players, actually. Cojo just trying to go at a breakneck pace to try to get the game closed out as quickly as possible. And I think Ampuissant's just trying to dig for their optimal festival setup.
Yeah, this is so much resupply on the second day. Seeing this many cards just already revealed is very high.
I want to say though there is one critical problem though for our Fen player, and that is the Axiom Salvager that got to resupply for the Cojo revealed Intimidation. And Intimidation, terrible into, for example, Sigmar, right? I mean, yeah, you can maybe remove a token here or there. That can, I guess, help, but you can't hit any of the relevant permanents ever. And most of the characters that you care about cost 2 or less, so it's not really mana efficient either. Meanwhile, into this Fen Festival archetype, one, if you're removing a festival, that's super mana efficient and will save you the game oftentimes. And two, many of the characters that you end up playing as Fen Festival to try to enable that festival win condition, for example, Aloe Vera, will end up being a positive mana trade for you, just getting rid of it temporarily with the Intimidation. So that's a really nice hit and good reveal there from the Axiom Salvager for our Cojo.
Yeah, the as much as Impuissant has cycled through cards and seen all the uniques, they have not made an advance yet, and I don't know. I feel like it's very hard to even pull off a festival when Cojo is this close to just outright winning. Not impossible though. I've seen
Yeah,
crazier
I, I
things.
I sort of agree. I think the critical thing here is that the Cojo, or I'm sorry, the Fen needs to find a way to either stall the Cojo or to sort of force through this removal as quickly as possible, I guess, by deploying something critical so that they can try to set up the next turn and prevent a double advance from the Cojo then in order to win the game. Yeah, card advantage, super good, but you need to transition that into actually winning the game at some point. The Fen isn't trying to win this game by progressions in any way, shape, or form. That is not their relevant win condition. From the point where Cojo took back-to-back double advances, that was clearly not on their radar. They're just trying to find a way to win the game, and that's probably going to involve some amount of stalling. I think it's going to really depend on what expeditions come up. And okay, that is one nice thing then for the Fen. The Cojo player is on the mountain only expedition, so if the Fen does run into some of their characters that do perform a little bit better on that stat line, it should be a little bit easier to block than running into, say, the water forest biome.
Yeah, so what do you think of the Kodama play there? In my head, if you're playing that for basically no advantage,
Mm-hmm.
you're just looking to get that into the reserve for the anchor ability, right?
Yeah, they're both using it to get that anchor ability online for not this turn but the next turn, but also just trying to make it a little bit easier to stabilize this turn or just not lose the game to a double advance this turn. Also, if that ends up forcing out the intimidation a little bit early on something like that instead of the Lyra Festival, that could also help a bit.
Um, well, an Anansi is a good way to help bring out some stats and hopefully not get double moved on here, but there still is that intimidation. You intimidate the Anansi, it can be replayed again, and then
Yeah. No,
yeah,
you're totally right. Intimidation, not really the optimal answer here for that. I think Kojo's trying to, their optimal scenario here would be having 2 plays in terms of characters that they can play for the 3 mana that they have remaining. Probably sort of the optimal setup would be maybe some combination of a Isun Boshi onto the hero side, and then actually, or probably just a single Isun Boshi onto the hero side would be the optimal start, at least before having to commit your remaining mana for the turn. But I don't know. The fact that they're having a critical decision here makes me really wonder. I doubt they have an optimal setup of cards in hand, and they're trying to value here. Okay, can I do anything? Do I have to fire off this intimidation? Can I play a character into it? And yeah, it ends up being this Haven Sarengar, but notably that's onto an expedition where they're not particularly good on that exact dynamic I was mentioning earlier, where that the fact that they're on the mountain only expedition on the companion expedition is going to make it much harder for the Sarengar to find an advance.
yeah. I do not know if Belteshazzar plays Fire Rabbit, but there's perfectly 1 mana left, but no, both of them have passed. It wouldn't have done too much other than getting a advance on the hero side. The
Mhm.
Fire Rabbit is 1 nature, 1 mountain, right? And then it gives a boost, of course.
Yes, Forest Mountain, and that exactly can get fleeting, give a boost. Yeah, definitely a good tool that Kojos do have access to at this point. Not really sure if Belteshazzar is running it or not. Some people haven't quite adopted the card yet, but I would imagine at this point they are as well. It's so good. But I mean, I have to say, interestingly, this game has stabilized a little bit. That was a critical turn there for Fen, and they did manage to anchor that Anansi, so it does stick around for another turn. But that's not to say that they're out of the woods just yet. The threat of removal still looming over them at this point, and could definitely threaten to cheese 1, if not 2 expeditions. So we'll see.
Yep, and they are not out of the woods. They might as well be lost in the woods.
That's not a card that's going to get played this game.
uh,
our
what is
Tasia player
the
strikes again.
what is the oof for Lost in the Woods? Is it not Lyra?
It might be, but I'm actually I have no clue.
Yeah,
That's
off the top of my head, it
embarrassing.
seems like it would be Lyra. Um, no,
It is
it
Lyra. You
is,
are
it
correct.
is, yeah,
Yes.
but not played very often at all. A quick note on the Fire Rabbit, though. I played a game against Basira,
Mhm.
and my God, one of the best openings I've ever seen was a Basira and a Fire Rabbit, and I can't even remember what the other character card was, but there was just nothing I could do. It was such a good opening with the Basira boost, the Fire Rabbit boost, and then another body.
I love that Tooth Fairy, by the way, of Belteshazzar's that ended up getting put into the discard there. You were just mousing over it when I leave the expedition zone, sabotage at dusk, draw a card. It's such a nice card advantage piece. It doesn't quite have that like initial Tooth Fairy impact of just getting rid of something, having the stats on the board. It has okay stats for on its own, but this really just over time, it's about incremental value there, which is pretty awesome. But speaking of incremental value, like pretty much everything coming out from the Fen player does exactly that at this point. Notably as well, again, all of their plays lining up really well rather onto the expeditions as we see them coming out. Sleight of Hand, a massive deal here as well, able to pick up a 1 mana play in the magical training from their reserve, put a Hathor into their reserve, threatens to pick up yet another card, and they're still just forcing the Cojo to make all of their decisions before they have to make their final ones as well. It's beautiful so far for Fen this turn.
Yep. And we see in the reserve a Silent Night, one of the newer cards, and just that's such an amazing card for a festival deck. And it got me thinking, if there is another 2v2 event at PAX East, I bet we will see this Silent Night card so much. But haven't seen it as much in just regular constructed.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I keep seeing Impuissant play it specifically, but there's one or two other Fen Festival players that I have seen who are running 1 to 2 copies of it. It seems pretty cool, actually. Notably, it is worth mentioning that if they're playing the rare Lyra Festival in the Lyra faction, it does, instead of that draw card ability, give you the ability to instead give a target character your choice of fleeting, anchored, or asleep. So if you're able to deploy that before the festival, you sort of just get the best of both worlds, where you know for sure which you're going to have to choose with the festival then on the basis of whatever you rolled for the die roll off of the Silent Night. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is interesting. What do we see in here? A little bit of cleanup. Anansi is still hanging out, but Belteshazzar on Cojo is face to face. I don't know how other people describe it, but whenever you're like one move away, I just say face to face because look, they're staring at each other.
Yeah, you're totally right. I always call it being adjacent, but that's also totally reasonable. I thought the interesting thing the last turn was how highly the Fen player is valuing their Doctor Frankenstein here in reserve, which does tell me that they're probably going to try to win the game this turn with Festival. I would imagine it's going to have to start with multiple, probably 3 at least 1 mana plays back to back to back to try to force out everything from the Cojo player, including that removal, or to make decisions instead of that removal intimidation that we see. But really relying on that Dr. Frankenstein to get an additional trigger of that festival ability or additional reaction of the festival ability.
Yeah, we've got a very easy martingale for the fleeting, and then from there, just like you're saying, dropping the actual festival. There's a 1 mana play in the martingale. Do you think that's to dodge any removal? Oh no, there's the martingale right there.
Yeah, this is actually really nice for a Cojo, I have to say. Stalling a little bit in terms of playing out that Haven Bravos Bastion gives you a chance of resupplying into something that's low cost as well. Then Arcolano Milk, they're also trying to get maximum information or to force out the Fens plays before they decide what to remove and when. I'm starting to like Kojo's position here.
Yeah, that is a very good red played into the milk, and getting the boost from the milk and then 2 boosts from 2 havens. For people in chat asking about Kojo's card advantage, it is Belteshazzar's classic Tooth Fairy that at dusk draws a card. But then also when it leaves the expedition zone, sabotages. So very nice little Tooth Fairy. I feel like we've seen a good handful of Tooth Fairies in the online tournaments that sabotage in a different way.
That's true. Worth noting here as well. I mean, it might look that if Cojo doesn't have to play out all of the removal, that they're simply going to win the game this turn. There is definitely a risk, though, that a Lyra Festival just does come out and does sleep a character at some stage, which could give the opportunity to Fen to be able to try to go off next turn instead of this turn. But it's already looking tough, and for 1 mana, it's gonna have to be something else, probably another Martingale or a Paper Herald or some other way to add a single stat point onto that. I was gonna say, yeah, a stat point onto that companion side, but no, they're actually not going for the sleeping play whatsoever. They're just, I guess, trying to full deploy. And can they play a sleeping character for 1 mana here?
Yeah, I was thinking about a Silent Night, but then I'm like, oh no, you don't have enough bodies here.
Yeah.
So just looks like they didn't have everything they needed in hand to satisfy it, and Belshazzar takes out the win.
Yeah, definitely does. I think the early breakneck speed was just so good for them, and the fact that they were able to hit a intimidation that they got to hover in their reserve the pretty much the entire game was so critical there. It worked really well for the Kojo.
All right. I usually just jump into games back to back. I don't know how
Table
you
18,
feel.
let's go.
All right. If we got games playing, we got spectating to be saying.
Oh, this is hilarious. We have Akesha versus Lindway,
Oh, I'm gonna go to the
and
bathroom. I'll be back.
and there is a Baba's Isba in play, but it's in play for the wrong person. It's on the Akesha's side of the field. That's crazy.
Did the Akesha get early access to the steal your opponent's permanent card from set 3?
That's a great question. Does feel a bit like that in this case. It's really funny. Most, like, all of the cards that are currently in the Akesha's discard are things that I've seen in Lindway before, which is also pretty funny. Now with Chrysalis Unique coming out and a Chrysalis in reserve as well. Like, wow, who's playing Lindway here? This is crazy.
Yeah, when I first see an Isba in Akesha, I'm thinking, oh, great, they're just gonna want to be even more annoying and have more after use. But this deck is a lot more interesting than that so far.
Yeah, notably the Lindway player here is one of the top Lindways at the moment. Wesh after Zoa 54, I believe, being then the next highly placing Lindaway in one of these recent events. I expect that they know what they're doing here. But at the same time, one of the things that's sort of nice when you are playing into a really good player like that is playing something a bit unpredictable, something that it's unlikely that this Lindaway player, for example, has many reps playing against. In this case, it's Lindaway that they're playing against, just with a lot more after use. That's sort of how this one's turning out so far.
Yeah, it's a very good tech if you think about it to have Chrysalis and Akesha and then the Isba. So you get 2 after use, but you get the benefit from the Chrysalis when you sacrifice it, which is literally just gonna happen back to back right now. It's very, very interesting. I can respect this a little more. Looking into Lindaway's discard, every single gift of self has been played. So building up
Lindaway
card advantage
is
early, maybe.
I think Lindaway is telling us right here that they're playing for a small step win, most likely, and they do have correct turn order for it. I think they're going to stack all of their eggs on that companion side basket here, playing the Moth Lantern onto that side. Like, I think most stages of the game with Lindaway, you typically see the Lantern going onto the hero side, and then just leveraging the fact that your Maw will just get bigger and bigger on the companion side as well to contest. But yeah, just stacking everything on one side here, saying that they need to just power through on one side of the expeditions. But it's going to be tough. I mean, Akesha should have the ability to wait longer and longer to see what they're going to need to answer specifically.
They can wait in a game sense, but not
Oh,
in a timer sense. Oh, Kraken.
that's cool. Yeah, if Lindway has boom, they're totally fine and happy, but otherwise, that's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, could this be a what do we get? This could technically be a win for Aesha here, couldn't it?
Well, there's likely going to be some way of dealing with this. I mean, for making 2 stats here, if there's another off you go in hand that would be able to get rid of that mana moth, but no, it does look like they're a single stat point short of being able to stall at least. That's crazy.
Wow. That is a very interesting ending you do not see very often. One stat short on the companion and then had nothing in the hero, of course.
We just watched a Lindaway lose to Baba Isba Chrysalis Kraken. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that was cool. If anyone knows Coolium out of Canada, let them know we just witnessed that on stream. So
Yeah, I'm color me impressed. That was pretty awesome.
is
Oh, and
there a
with that, we're
chance
into
the
round
other
2. That's
player
sweet.
chose the wrong hero by accident? Maybe. All right, I picked first. What do you got for this one?
That's we could go table 4, Kaiki 1 against Sarcasm.
All right. That is a beautiful name.
It really is.
USA, USA. The flag of Chile kind of
Mhm.
looks like the flag of Texas. So,
Ah.
two US players here.
Oh, that's true. You all have your state flags as well. I don't, didn't even think about that. Fair enough.
Yep.
All right, this one starting out, we have Aanas versus Fen. Looks like, yeah, Mana Moth opener, Moth to a Flame for the Aanas. Nice little way to start off the game sometimes that sets up well for a good second day of the game, given that that Moth to the Flame is discounted for just 2 mana when you play it from your reserve. However, it immediately eats a Spycraft, a sort of non-traditional card in these Fen decks. So yeah, it gets rid of it right off the bat, which is pretty sweet. And the Fen does find an expedition progression themselves.
Nice. I just realized a kind of major downside to not being in the tournament and also not being Simon
Hmm.
is I don't have access to the tournament chat. But
True.
I don't see anything going on in Discord, so I'm I'm guessing everything is going well.
Yeah,
But if
so far so
any
good, right?
yeah, any of the players have any issues, make sure to put them in the stream chat or
Yeah, come screech at us over here.
yeah, or put them in the Discord. Tree.
Oh man, hey, this game so far, the characters in play for Afanas have been Moth, so that's pretty sweet. But yeah, Magpeng Hoarder, definitely a new, very sweet include for these Fen decks at common. Sort of a mini Anansi, 2 mana, 3/3 in stats for having those 2 cards in reserve already. So that does nicely go over the Afanas's Moth. And yeah, Fen does find themselves a couple advances ahead. They're a little bit, they're in an okay spot in terms of card advantage. I could imagine them potentially running out if they did have to cash in on any of it, or if there's another exhaust effect, like another copy of Nylum here could be particularly brutal. And if the Afanas is able to start leveraging that Withered Tree more and more, game could get pretty difficult for the Fen.
So after we've yep, there's a Rhyme Frost been in the Trial by Frost meta for a little longer. What are your thoughts on Freeze? Because on paper I love it, but I think people have really probably just decided it's too expensive.
Yeah, that's sort of the way I'm leaning as well. I think there could be some validity to it, but it's largely meta dependent as well, is what I would say. As long as Sigmar is a deck that we're seeing commonly, I don't think that card can be played, unfortunately. Um, Also, decks like Cojo, for example, at the moment as well, that Freeze plays particularly poorly into. And I mean, they're good. The dominance of cheap characters in general in this game has so far been pushing the more expensive removal cards out for a little bit from the format. I would say one of the counter examples to that point would be the card Boom, specifically out of Lindway. But that is sort of double upside in some cases. One being an additional sacrifice outlet, which can be relevant for that deck, but also just discarding completely the character is also very nice instead of just back to reserve. So you can use it to get rid of problem uniques like right away and prevent any further like looping shenanigans, which are also the sort of things you have to play around at this point. So yeah, Free's sort of having a hard time. Although love that card. It was my Trial by Frost spoiler card. So I've played it in a few decks, but yeah, just not really doing it for me at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunate. This we had a pretty interesting turn of events where the Withering Tree was taken out. Both players, for the most part, had no cards in hand. This unique red did give Afanis another one card up. I was gonna say that this type of Afanis should be really good against Fen because of all those exhausts, but we're in a pretty interesting place here now with how they're lining up.
At the same time, I mean, Afanis got their progressions back for that turn of Fens where they got rid of the Nylum Withered Tree, and the Withered Tree had already generated a little bit of value at least. So that was pretty good, and having a unique here that can start drawing cards and getting some card advantage back in this red does seem very strong at this point, especially now that they know that there's no removal that's going to come out onto it from the Fen. So they should be pretty clear just to deploy it and do so. So yeah, honestly, this is starting to look pretty Afanis favored at this point. I think the main worry is if they draw a few more cards, like a couple more copies of, for example, that Moth Larva. At this point, drawing a Nylum is going to be, in some cases, a little bit less effective than they might need. If if they just get a clunky draw with it, it could be a bit of a problem. But otherwise, everything's looking pretty good for the Afanis at the moment.
Yeah, the classic helping hand, one of the cards that has been watch listed, is going to not only boost this red, but keep it around to keep drawing cards and get stronger and stronger to contest lanes. Um, Almost was wondering if we were going to get some sort of sneaky move on the forest side with that moth larva, but the ink caster perfectly
Mhm.
placed to block it.
No, you're right. It's so interesting. I can't help but wonder. Like, it feels so right to just get rid of the Nylum when you're worried about the potential that it has over the course of a longer game and what it could represent over many turns of potentially exhausting things. But I feel like the potential loss for Fen is just so bad having to play a cloth cocoon into that when you're really worried about the potential of something like a unique like this for, it gets fleeting and then that's the only time it becomes vulnerable to that removal spell. Just being able to snap off a cloth cocoon at that exact point can be so important. And here, Fen's going to be in a position where they're just going to have to dig for it repeatedly, and they do need to find something like that at some point. I wonder if it's almost better to just bite the bullet at some point and say, yeah, they're going to have a Nylum. Maybe it's really good. Maybe I will lose to that. But everything else is just so scary, and I need to have some answer to it. But, it's really hard to know. In this specific case, I think it's nice for Afanis as well, having the 1 mana play in that Moth Larva will again give them maximum information about where they want to put their stats on the board when they end up playing a couple more spells here towards the end of this turn. And yeah, seeing what Fen wants to contest is going to give Afanis lots of information here.
Yeah, this Flamel is a very, very good Flamel. Has when you play another character of base statistic 0, you may return a spell. Not only that, but it is 3/3 and the stats are 4/4/3.
You're right.
So
It's absurd stats for 3 mana Flamel.
very good. This Kodama, I haven't had a chance to read yet, but there we go. From hand, draw a card. From reserve, gain a sleep. Also, very good stats for a 3 mana and 2 mana card.
And,
But
it's often at this point that Afanis will just have a small step by now, especially because the unique that was played, it wasn't a spell return unique, but it was a card draw one, getting them a little bit through their deck. They should likely see a small step if they're playing multiples, but it's also worth noting they are playing a Nylum Withered Tree build, and sometimes they don't even run small step. I think more commonly we see like 1 to maybe 2 copies in a Nylum build if it's like a fully built around Nylum setup, so and especially because they're having a decision here at in the morning, I guess, about whether whether and what they're going to mana. Chances are they don't have it quite yet.
yeah, do you think there are certain players who will take the downside of not using small step for now in preparation for it possibly getting banned or errataed in the future?
Um, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people who do that for testing purposes, but if you're trying to win these events or you're taking them seriously on some level, I think for the most part you're just playing the card when it's good. If you're seeing a deck that doesn't have it, I'm assuming that they're trying to do that not just out of the idea of flexing that they don't even have to run small step, but because they believe that their build is working well without it. Um, so yeah, that would be my assumption.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, this the previous turns from Fen just seemed like not getting everything they needed. As you mentioned a little earlier, loss of momentum from taking out that tree. One of the things that I often worry about when removing a landmark is I can spend so much to remove this, and if they just replay another one, then like it's still there technically.
You're right. Critical Card did come out there in the Twinkle Twinkle. That being able to discard or to use that support ability to make the next card they play cost 1 less means that they will actually be able to play something from their reserve. The question though is, does Afanas have a character at this point? Because a character in whatever expedition the Fen doesn't play on will be enough to take it, as long as it has a stat point on that expedition. So that is the main question here at this point. Otherwise, Afanas will be able to at least sleep whatever that character is, so they shouldn't be worried about losing either. Um, but yeah, it's Afanas who gets the chance to win here if they do have a character.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate sequence of turns where Faunus gets to have the last place precisely when he needs it. There are a lot of quick actions here, but the Flamel gets played. The Thespian has a return a spell. That's not really going to help Fen, but the Flamel had a next character you play this turn gets a boost. But the Beauty Sleep is just right there chilling in the reserve. So
Yep, and they did have a character, so Baba Yaga does indeed take that. So Afanas wins, not needing small step there. But yeah, that was a pretty tight one, I have to say. I think if the Fen had had a little bit better luck towards the last couple turns, having a couple less clunky characters, and there were a lot of 3-cost plays in there, not playing super well into cards like Off You Go, maybe that could have been a little bit different.
all right. Do we still have time to go curse Pandy Andy?
Yes, of course.
All right. Table 8 it looks like started 13 minutes ago. All right. I'll let the professional Keelon guy take an intro to this game away. I'm going to share out the
Absolutely.
stream real quick.
We're currently looking at a Sigmar versus Afanas matchup. Notably, this is a poor matchup for Afanas. I play, especially because I'm seeing a copy of Meditation Training in the discard currently. I play a pretty similar version of Afanas to this, would be my guess. I'm definitely expecting potentially some like at dusk return spindles, but in this case, it doesn't matter. Removal is really, really good for Sigismar, and sometimes it's just the case that Afanas doesn't play enough characters for them to be able to do anything once removal comes out. And it's not really their fault either. The nature of the hero ability means you have to play a certain number of spells in order to make good value out of it. And when you're playing a bunch of spells, sometimes you just don't have characters.
so sad to see open up a Pandy Andy game and see that he's returned to the dark side of the Sigismar.
It's the perpetual cycle. Some things never change.
I would like to see more Winter Nova finishes and not Small Step. I think that was a once in a lifetime thing we saw last week. So I don't know if we're gonna get that again. I still need to clip that because it was very cool. But where are we looking to go next, Keelan guy?
Table 12 still has a little bit of life to it.
That's what I was looking at that table as well.
So currently there is an absurd amount of stats on board for the Tasia player, Izzy Lopez. Especially with this Capellia unique that is out, it does threaten to give 2 characters a boost every single time another character joins their expeditions at this point. But that being said, there's only 1 card left in hand for Ez Lopez as well, so it's not going to be too many more boosts that they get out of it. It's also worth noting, Cladius, our Sigismar player, has both a Monolith out and also a token spamming unique for 1 mana and 3 cards left in hand. So somehow there's totally a world where Sigismar not only manages to not just fight this turn, but potentially win or even win multiple expeditions. Which is sort of crazy given the setup that the Tasia has, but it's going to be tough. They need to have very specific cards that do very specific things in order to get the stats that they would need.
Yeah, that is probably one of the best cards that Tasia could have had in the hand, being the Yongsu. Not only is it going to trigger and get all of those boosts from the plants on the board, but then it is also going to give boosts to the Shroom and the Dracana. I think I missed the second one. Yeah, Dracana.
It's also funny. It's not often that I would talk poorly about the downsides of a 1 mana token spammer unique, but notably that this one in play does only put the token into the companion expedition. They do not get to choose a target expedition, so they're functionally playing to contest both sides at this point, not just one of them, and that does mean that they sort of have their work cut out for them here. Again, yeah, they're going to have specific things come out in order to be able to contest. Likeliest to be removal plus a character, and even then, I think they would only be winning on one side.
Ooh, this is an interesting play though. If they don't get a move here, they do let Tasia double move, but there are looks like they're gonna pull out the move on the water. I was gonna say there's a double Legat there that would have hit Tasia's Shroom, Dracana, or Yongsu, so that could have been interesting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
this is a crazy end state for this game. Sigismar having to play out all of their characters there in order to make that turn happen, or not just lose double progressions there, which is sort of brutal given that they were pretty far ahead in terms of cards in hand towards the beginning of that turn. The power that Capellia really being shown at the moment as well, especially because it was sleeping last turn, meaning that it's just hanging around to do the same thing again. And the fact that there is a plant in reserve for the Tasia already means that they will fulfill that 2 or more plants condition that the Capellia has. So it's just about to be another pile of stats coming out for them. And so things are very quickly going to be dependent purely on what Sigismar draws off the top of their deck.
yeah, I really like this Copelia because it has a very interesting interaction where when I go to reserve from the expedition zone, you may play me for free and I gain a sleep. So it is kind of the opposite of normal Copelia. It's very, very cool, very interesting. I remember seeing this, I think, on Ace or one of the other AWOLs before. HAT is Hispanic Altered Team, right?
Yeah, you got it exactly. They I don't have too much info to work with from them, but they have mentioned that their main goal is to grow the altered scene in Spain specifically. Yeah, that's their stated purpose. So yeah, I was seeing them all around at the moment. Lots of really good players affiliated with that team. Most of the well-known Spanish names are becoming part of it. It seems at this point.
Everyone is getting a hat. One of the things I love about Spindle that we just saw, the rare one, is at noon it gives a boost. So we saw the shroom get a boost, right? And then the Spindle Harvest is the first thing that's played. I thought I saw another
Well,
boost come out.
yeah,
What did I
the
miss?
Sneezer Shroom got its own boost
Oh,
natively.
yes,
Then the
yes, yes.
noon boost from the Spindle Muna Bastion went onto the Capellia.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the Spindle Harvesters being played out gave the 2 boosts from that Capellia effect, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, this is nice. Um, I'm still just always scared of a Sigismar with this much mana, though.
I mean, I agree. I think the reason why the Tasia's probably feeling a little bit more comfortable than otherwise is specifically because they have that Spindle Muna Bastion in play. I've heard some well-known Tasia players talk about how they don't love the card in this matchup because it is pretty hard to deploy without giving a Sigismar a potential sort of steamroll for a couple turns there
Mhm.
when they're setting it up and just playing a bunch of characters while you're setting up permanents. But at the same time, if you are able to get it down and play a setup or like a very setup focused sort of turn, suddenly your stuff is very difficult to remove, and Tasia can be sort of a critical mass deck in some cases. Like this Capellia does not work unless you have 2 or more plants, for example. You're not going to have that for a while if you know your anchored things start getting removed. So I guess the spindle really just helps the pieces all stick together, and notably as well when you're playing cards like rare spindle harvesters, which has that effect at noon. If I have 2 or more boosts resupply, one of the easiest ways to get that second boost onto the card is also having the Spindle Muna Bastion in play to just deliver that boost right at noon when it would need it to get the additional gas as far as that resupply is concerned.
Most definitely. Yeah, I just lately I've been going up against way more Fen than even Siggy, and
Really?
Spindle's not been doing great against Fen because there's that cloth cocoon to just take it right out. GG monolith in hand. Uh, I believe that is what Claudius just said. So I was wondering if we were going to see someone get Cocoa Bud, but it does not seem to be the case.
It's one of the rare situations where it's like, does Kokoba even win it? Which is crazy because, I mean, in this specific instance, if yeah, a Kokoba could have probably won one of the sides, I believe, but yeah, it's hard, but a crazy setup there for Tasia. Really impressed with the quality of that unique. The other one that was played by them that game in their discard pile, pretty good, but not quite at the same level. Capellia unique's just terrifying in general when they have good like static effects like that. We've seen it previously, actually, a long time ago with Exalt's Aaron sort of delivering on the Capellias with the anchored effect, giving things anchored. I think when they would play another character or when another character would gain a boost, they can be pretty ridiculous.
Have you seen the hat logo? I think this is the first time I've actually seen it. It is a duck with sunglasses wearing a top hat. Stream should be able to see it now, so I'm always happy to see a Tasia take down a Sigismar. So that was a very good, very cool ending for me. Let me refresh here, see what games we have left. All right, this is the time where we might actually switch over into our fancy screen here because the last 2 remaining matches are not very much left to play. So usually what happens if we try to load into those, they've finished. So how are things looking so far tonight? What are you thinking,
So far,
Elon?
so good. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. I was gonna say cool. I mean, I feel bad saying this. Cladius, who we just saw get cooked a little bit there by the pretty cool Tasia setup, definitely, if not the best, one of the best Sigismar players at the moment, and one of the most well known. We've been seeing them show up again and again and again at the undefeated slots at the very end of these tournaments. So seeing a sort of early loss from them, it's not that I'm happy to see it. It's just nice to see. Okay, we don't just have one player dominating absolutely everything. So that's a cool shakeup, I would say. suffering from winning too much there, Clay.
Yeah.
But no, it's it's pretty cool. The people who are doing well so far, it looks like there's some good success from the Hispanic Alter Team guys, but also a player from After You is also 2-0 with Victor Mata. I believe he was one of the founders of the team. Even could be wrong on that. I should probably check in on that again. But definitely one of their core people, which is sweet. And then and yeah, as well as DLA Nyatito. I don't know Team DLA yet, but also undefeated, as well as Pandy Andy from AQZ. And then a bunch of other non-team affiliated names. So it looks pretty even. Looks like a lot of the team affiliated players just getting sort of deleted at the moment, and a lot of them still performing. So yeah, looks pretty cool. Still pretty diverse, and I'm excited to see what decks some of these other top players are playing.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about some of the top players like Claudius and who else did I see? One of the hat players, Tagagi, uh, when they lose one match, they typically just drop from the tournament. Save, some time. They know they're not going to get first or second place most likely, and your chances for top 16 also kind of go down, and it's a clawing your way to the top from then. So two of those players have dropped from the tournament now, which means we're going to just condense down a little more after each round and have more of a slugfest between the next matches.
No, you're right. A lot of some of the really high level players that I think of, like players like Hyper K as well, have also dropped now at this point with that first loss. I get it, but at the same time, I'm someone who's like, if I'm there to play the event and I can have a winning record that would still go on to 39 cards or whatever, a win's a win,
Yeah.
I'm not picky. If I'm just trying to get reps on a deck that I think is pretty good that I can win with. If I'm losing one round, I don't mind. If I'm losing two, then I'm sweating because like, okay, still want to have a good finish and feel good about it. But yeah, I'm personally just not one of the people who will care so much if I drop one. I'd rather just finish it out strong. But I also get for some of these players, it's really late at night at the moment as well. So if they lose and they were there to win the event, I get it. Go have a sleep.
Yep.
Also worthwhile.
Yep. It's about to hit 1 a.m. in Paris, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. They've won events before. They have plenty of top 16s. It's not looking to go how they want. They'll probably drop and go get some sleep, and do it all again in the next tournament because they participate in almost all of them. But to your point, are you keeping track still of who has the most placements on 39 cards between you and Freeloader?
Oh yeah, that's freeloader by a mile at this point. I commentate significantly more often than I play. There was that, and then the fact that I think he got ahead of ahead of me from my own events that I was hosting, which I also didn't play in at that point. We had a competitive race up until the early stages of Trial by Frost, but then from then on, I've been commentating as much as is possible. And yeah, so my result frequency has suffered where his hasn't really.
Seems a little bit like cheating. We do have round 3 starting to fire up here. I'm gonna go table 9.
Sweet.
And I don't know if you've noticed this. Let's see if it's still true going into this game. The other thing is seems as Claudius is actually back in Taiwan currently,
Oh,
so
he's in
it's
Taiwan.
almost 8
I thought
a.m. there.
normally he lives in Thailand. Interesting.
Taiwan, Thailand. I'm just going off of stream chat here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is it Earl? Yeah, Earl? Yeah. It's always fun to try and pronounce names here, but oops, not Taiwan, Thailand. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I did not look
So,
up the
yeah,
time in Thailand, but hey, if it's
I guess
8 in the morning,
yeah.
this is breakfast. Keep playing, Claudius. Come on, let's go.
That's funny though. No, it's interesting. I didn't realize that he has made his way back to to Thailand again from France. I know he was there for a little while, playing as much altered as he could. But yeah, back to the real life, I guess, in that sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have Fen versus Sigmar, notably Gamma Knight playing Fen, not something I'm
Hmm.
used to seeing. This is the Nevenka expert, so what's happening, Gamma Knight? Ooh.
That's what I'm saying. I saw this happen the other day, and I went and checked, and I was like, literally every placement that Gamma Knight has up until this point has been on Nevenka.
Mhm.
But now the Fen and Crowbar, which he actually hit top 8 this previous week on Ace
Mhm.
with. So now it's just gonna be, Nevenka all in a row, and now I'm guessing Fen all in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely possible. Still a Lyra hero, so don't mind too much there. It's just sad because I always think of Gamma Knight as the Nevenka guy. So,
I know.
um, yeah, I mean, I will see if he ends up bringing it back at some point, or whether he just thinks that Fen is the superior choice at the moment. Can't help but feel like that might be the case. Fen has had some pretty good results. I think most people are, in their internal tier lists, putting that hero pretty high up at least, but not as high up as Sigismars are often finding themselves, and that is the matchup at hand. Sometimes it can be a tough one for Fen or Lyra heroes in general, just depending on how the tumult works out. Especially given that Lyra is known for having spike stats and zeros in some places. But at least in the current expeditions, it's looking pretty okay for the Fen.
Did
But
you
yeah,
just see what I just saw?
um,
Baba Yaga play into the hero when it could have blocked a companion, or am I do I need to clean my glasses?
what I'm trying to figure out was I think the last action might have been on Fens anyway.
Yeah,
No,
'cause
no, no. You're right. Actually, it was Baba Yaga last. Yeah, I think you're right there. That is interesting.
yeah, has to be a misplay in that case, which I am no stranger to. So
Oh, I'm no stranger to it myself at this point. I think one of the things that I often have a habit of doing is trying to figure out early on to the turn what exactly my lines are going to be, depending on what my opponent plays. And then at some point, it's like I spend a bunch of time thinking, and I'm like, okay, I figured out my lines, time to execute. And then I just disregard what actually happens on the board just because I'm saying, oh, like, yeah, character was played. Now I know I played my character. I play my thing, and I'm like, wait, I didn't need to do that. The character that they played didn't do anything, and it doesn't matter. So it happens to all of us, really.
ooh, Tanuki's gonna hit this unique. This unique though is a rather unfortunate one to be used against Fen. You're
Hmm.
not really ever going to use the ability, and
I mean, occasionally you see a festival or two. I
yeah.
mean, even if it's not Fen Festival, occasionally there are Fen builds that just play like a copy of the common. But you're right. I don't imagine that is in the deck for the Fen matchup. I think they're trying to hit more, some other Sigismars, for example.
Yeah, let's see here. Just gonna avoid each other on this one. That's going to tie up the game entirely. I
Yeah,
would guess if
notably,
you
Fen
have
perfectly
this,
happy to trade expeditions here.
yeah, if you have this unique, you have a Grand Endeavor or a Bastion, right? For the
Um,
Sigismar.
I mean, possibly. I mean, you're playing it for getting rid of those largely. Most Sigismars are playing Grand Endeavor or Monolith, Muna, or Bastion. Um, yeah, not Bastion, notably. But there are some Sigismars that are playing permanent lists as well. But no, in this case, it is, believe it or not, this player is playing both and also Ordis Carrier. So they are playing some permanents.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that unique has the condition if you control
Yeah.
one or more landmarks. So I have done it before where I've accidentally left my Esmeralda in a deck where I don't have a landmark and she requires a landmark. And then when I go to play it, I realize, oh crap, I forgot to switch this unique.
True.
Oh man, there it is. That
Yeah, there is that
nasty
Grand
thing.
Endeavor. but it does give a definitely pretty likely chance even for Fen to find a double advance this turn. And if they do, they're threatening a small step win right off the bat.
Yeah, the Siggy player has already announced GG in the chat. Let's look at this Kappa on a 4+
No, it's not
draw
over.
card.
You gotta believe that you're gonna draw the sabotage.
Ooh, what if they don't play any?
Nah, they play it. They play Order Spy. There's no world.
There's no world. That's crazy talk.
It is. There are matchups where Order Spy not particularly good into, but I think for the most part, Sigmar has realized the value of just the common sabotage enough to warrant playing it. But yeah, I mean, let's see if they draw it here. They need it right away to get rid of that small step. Notably, the Fen, I believe, only plays one copy of Small Step. So if that one's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, it would be a very good moment right here because that Grand Endeavor is just so menacing that if you get rid of that small step, it's looking pretty good for the Siggy.
Yes, I mean, I would sort of agree. I think the main risk is they still need to get rid of the small step and dodge this turn somehow. And yeah, that is the perfect card to do it. Jack Frost, for multiple reasons. One, for 2 mana instead of 3, and virtually the same stats as Order Spy. That's super nice already. They did need that sort of effect. 2, if this game does go to the tiebreaker arena, Small Step Giant Leap is no longer a thing. And if the game doesn't go to tiebreaker arena, chances are Grand Endeavor is winning them the game also right off the bat. Anubis coming out here looks good, but at the same time, there is a solid risk here that it can get overstated, and there isn't much left for Sigmar. It's just going to be this Ortus Trooper play.
Yeah, yep, there's still this Kappa here. There's a Cloth Cocoon if we want to get rid of anything that comes out of reserve, which is only the Trooper. Yeah. It's got to be the Cloth Cocoon you're going to see, right? Based on quick
Well,
maths.
Cloth Cocoon can't do anything.
Against the Trooper, then the Siggy would still get a move. Yeah, you're right. I was just thinking about removing the Trooper, but that does not
Okay.
give. Yeah, that does not give Fen stats in that case.
But there's another character so critical for Fen here at this point, and yeah, that will just be enough for them. But yeah, that was really close, and good on Siggy for finding that. If not sabotage, at least that exhaust the card and reserve effect to make that go all the full distance there in that day. But yeah, well done to Fen taking down a Siggy.
Nice. All right, it's your turn to pick. Where are we going?
Where are we going? That's a great question. Let's say table 11. Alphabet Souped against Cojo.
Another great name, Alphabet Souped. Ooh, and we're seeing the very interesting Sierra with the. I just call it the cycle because Oro. But if I try too hard to say Ouroboros, I can't do it.
I think this is maybe my favorite way that some Sierra decks are built at the moment. The Ouroboros plus the Nylum Withered Tree, and then just really trying to combo off, but also having some reasonable mid-rangey characters like this Foundry Armorer that can just be good in early stages of the game as well. Definitely, when that deck starts going off, it can be pretty scary and pretty consistent and very difficult to stop. Aanas in general having a hard time with permanence, I would say. The fact that Banishing Gate is less and less commonly run, and when it is, it's like 1 or 2 of max, and it ends up being mana inefficient to play that into an Ouroboros Lyra Bastion as well. So yeah, sometimes these decks can pose a little bit of a problem for the Aanas deck, but notably, Aanas is working with a ton of cards at this point, and having Flamel in reserve is typically a good feeling for the Aanas player.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you feel about going up against this type of Sierra specifically, as everyone knows you're a bit of a Faunus player yourself.
Yeah, just a bit. I've been informed though that I'm retired from competitive play, so I don't make the top cut anymore of good Afanis players, but that's okay. I can still tell you that it feels good having a Flamel in your reserve. But yeah, notably that Nylum getting played again now means that Flamel will not be entering either at the discount cost of 3, nor being able to use that support ability. And there are a bunch of moths and a brass bug in play at this point. But I think, depending on what characters the Afanis has access to here, it's likely going to be pretty easy for them to set up something big on at least one side here.
Yeah, all they have to do here is block one side to win it, and then small step. The other thing is these. Oh wow, that's good to get rid of that Kellen burst too. This last card, I'm thinking, yeah, in a perfect world is something to trigger the Ouroboros.
Yeah,
Uh,
Frozen Delivery is excellent, but the cards they're finding are going to be hard to make them do anything this turn.
yeah, I think the hard part with that double tree and then the Sierra is there are 3 bodies out here that don't really equal that many stats.
No, you're totally right. Sort of the thing with Sierra that we have seen in many cases is builds that are fully built around Brassbug Hive to try to mitigate that. Part of the problem with Sierra is that it does require a lot of build around in order to enable that hero ability to start doing a lot of things. And at the end of the day, it's a 2/2/2 that you get maximum 1 time a turn if you've been playing permanents into it, which can often be reasonably inefficient. So one of the ways that Sierras have tried to make that work for them is by playing Brassbug Hive, so at least they're larger and larger. But it's also, yeah, it's a difficult way to put your deck together as well, because when you're reliant on a 6 mana permanent, you have to make various concessions in the rest of your deck building plan for example, early and mid game.
Yeah, and Afanis just has 2 perfect cards right here to get up and win the companion side. Love a Mage Dancer. The Tooth Fairy took out the Kellen Burst. I do not see a way in which Afanis doesn't pull this out fairly easily, unless just a very bad hand is over there in those 3 cards.
Yeah, the mage dancer here is undoubtedly going to start going crazy here. Oh, also notably, a spindle harvester unique. It is a resupply spindle harvester. I don't know what you know about these, but when they go off, they're absolutely crazy. And now I'm starting to look at this deck list. I'm wondering, maybe is this like combo of Faunus instead of the typical thing.
Yeah, I'll pull a Blue Oak TV and do an egregious shout out. But I was telling the guys on the Altered Corner podcast on the episode that just came out yesterday about a Faunus like mega reserve, and they weren't quite believing me. And then literally an hour after we finished recording, someone posted a picture of like an Afanis with their reserve off the screen. I was like, I told you it's real.
No, it's true. I've been telling people about these combo decks, both the Aurak but also Afanis. These resupply uniques, there's a reason why they're on the Equinox watch list. That's all I can say. They
Yep.
can be pretty absurd, but yeah, in this case, it doesn't look like the full combo Afanis. It is the small step giant leap win. I have been quoted as saying I want that card to be nerfed purely because I'm tired of commentating wins of it, but in this case, it's not too unexpected.
Yep, and we see another small step on the stream here. I think we're going to, well, let's see. This game just started 18 minutes ago. What table is this? Table 16. Let's see what we're looking at here.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's
Erlea, who's in the chat here.
Erlea. You say that so much better than me, Mister. Speak 3 languages. That is definitely a good way to say it.
That's maybe it's wrong. Who knows? But I try playing against Mebibite. Also, kind of cool username. And there's a neat unique for the bottom of Faunus here. This Studious Disciple has a effect that lets them pay a mana to give a boost on a character. Definitely not the sort of like high power Faunus uniques that we're used to seeing in a lot of cases. But I do think there is some fringe value, actually, especially in early turns, if you are able to surprise someone with something like this. They are playing the rare Spindle Harvesters, and being able to get an additional stat point here and there while playing another character, I have a feeling they're able to cheese a couple double advances here and there with it, so that's still cool to see. But yeah, this Akesha looks like they've been going off this game. Multiple common Baba Yagas in play on that companion side, not the sort of thing that we're super used to seeing. Pomola now onto the hero side as well. It's not blocking very well against that Spindle Harvester, but it's threatening to advance, and frankly, they're in the leading position here.
Yeah, the one thing going for the Afanis is there is hypothetical card advantage. I don't really know how people love to refer to, the cards in reserve versus cards in hand and
Mhm.
like half card advantage. But playing out the Studious Disciple, I'm guessing there isn't any actual cycling of any sort for the Afanis. If you look at this Category and Mage Dancer, it's when you play a spell, target character gains 1 boost. So that can kind of go anywhere. Perfect amount of mana to use this Beauty Sleep, though, and then get a boost from a Faunus and that Mage Dancer.
Yeah, you're right, and that is really putting the pressure onto Erlea for finding I guess, the optimal way to try to play out whatever these remaining cards are in order to prevent themselves from losing to that, or at least trying to find a way that they can still find a progression this turn to try to take the game themselves. I totally agree with you. That Mage Dancer unique that's in play, I think a lot of times we disregard unique mage dancers because of the fact that they're just so good at common and rare. Why
Mhm.
play the unique? In this case, the fact that it can give the boost to a target character is so difficult for solving these sort of late game gameplay scenarios.
Yeah, this Aurora out of the Kesha though is a very surprising card to be the final card in their hand. Not quite what I was expecting, but it's gonna get rid of a card now, and it has okay-ish stats after that as well.
Yeah, and notably, it's not just discard a character to reserve; it discards the character entirely. Meaning that that is not going to get replayed again. So I think they're just trying to choose now, like what gives them the most chances of winning the game here.
Yeah. See if we can figure it out before they figure it out. It's a really hard decision here because the Mage Dancer, of course, is going to provide some extra utility, but it has no stats currently. Um, they have to worry about the Beauty Sleep. Yeah, I feel like this is a very hard decision, but maybe you just get rid of a Spindle Harvester in the hero side. What's your bet?
I think it's the Mage Dancer.
Mage
Yeah, it
Dancer,
is the
yeah,
Mage Dancer.
yeah,
Reason being, if you go after either of the characters on that hero side, the other one is still threatening the progression on their own forest expedition on that side. And a Beauty Sleep would have let them stall on that companion expedition, then I believe, if not progress themselves, thanks to the additional boost that that can distribute wherever they would need it. Um, as it stands, this shouldn't be enough on its own to prevent a double advance for the Akesha. So this should be, unless I'm missing something critical,
yeah.
that
No, it
should
only
be
blocks
enough.
one side. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Yeah, that was well done for Leia finding the correct line there. They did have all the information they needed. It's hard to know when the Aphanis is hovering the Beauty Sleep in the reserve, but has one card left in hand. Like,
Yeah.
are they just going to bait me with an off you go or something that I didn't expect? But yeah, no, it was the Beauty Sleep, and yeah, they chose correctly.
Yep. It is a very it would have been a very good bait if that were the case because having just 3 mana remaining and having the Beauty Sleep sitting there is at surface level going to signal that the Afanis is going to use the beauty sleep, which they did. But if they didn't, it could have been a little surprise there.
Definitely agreed. And with that, we're into round 4, which is awesome, making good timing on this event so far as well. If you're down for it, I would love to jump into table 6 directly. Nitracta against a player who I love to commentate their games, West.Will. Sometimes they bring really spicy stuff, and when they're not bringing really spicy stuff, sometimes it's Sigmar, and then they crush everyone. So,
All
so
right.
let's check it out.
Yeah, we're loading up there. Shout out to West.Will, not only a great player, but also just a very friendly person. West.Will will classically, if you say you are looking to trade for a card in Altered Corner, just say, I have extra here, just have them. So shout out to West.Will for that for sure.
Oh, I'm so excited. West.Will is running it back. Their 100 card Sigmar build.
Oh,
We
is
saw
that what
them
they're
win.
doing?
Yeah, we saw them win on stream with the 100 card Sigmar
They
build.
beat me.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
And we're back to it. So, yeah, let's see if they can bruise up a few more players with this ridiculously strong deck.
Yeah, I could not believe the cards that he got with having that many cards in his deck. It was just everything you could want. And there's only like one copy. Like there's only one copy of Grand Endeavor, I'm pretty sure. He had it,
Sorry.
of course.
This is so absurd to me. I'm just checking now. So A.W.O.L wins the No Unique Championship earlier today, right?
Uh-huh.
Goes against 100 card West.Will Sigmar and loses to it. This is amazing. Oh, so that was the last round. So yeah, here we are. And this the deck is scary. Like it sounds like a joke, but there's a lot of good cards in the faction.
Yeah.
I assure you, West.Will is playing all of the good ones. Heck, he might be playing all of them in general, but there's definitely a lot of good cards included with that. And I think the scary part is as well, there's a lot of removal in general that can play very well in Sigmar. He will have access to all of it, and at the most fundamental level, removal plus having a free token every single day is a super strong way of playing the game. One of the reasons why Sigmar is one of the top 2 heroes at the moment, if not the top 1, is exactly that. So I can definitely imagine, regardless of the inconsistency of potentially hitting a Grand Endeavor when they need it, for example, they're going to find some wins off of just purely hero ability plus good card.
Yep. So, thinking about what we see in the reserve here, I think one of the disappointing things for me out of Rallying Call is we've seen hypothermia become more popular, but I have never myself witnessed a hypothermia into a Rallying Call follow up, which it's just so perfect for. But I've never seen it.
No, you're right. It is sort of perfect. But yeah, so far this game going pretty well for Fen, have to say. Trading 1 for 1 over the course of 2 days is sort of fantastic, especially given the card advantage that the Fen is starting to build up at this point. Especially if they're able, outside of just this Hathor, to find another way to potentially loop this magical training, whether that's a unique or a card like Sleight of Hand, that will really make things difficult for Sigmar. But so far, still reasonable for Siggy as well. They're not like out of it or anything. I just think that the Fen is getting more of their desired game plan out so far, at least.
The most impressive thing about this West.Will list is how it makes you want to cheer for a Sigismar.
Yeah, that's true. I am a dedicated Sigmar anti-fan, but I'm thrilled watching 89 cards in his deck and like, oh yeah, maybe he can draw a really good one next draw.
Yeah. Did you check the load up screen to see if this is the deck that he was playing is the super big one?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought, but just wanna confirm so that we all know that this is indeed what we're looking at.
No, it absolutely is. There's yeah, it's worth noting as well. It's not like you get more rares when you play a deck that large.
Nope.
No, it's commons. Just luckily, there's a lot of really good commons in the faction, and some of the best removal in the game is also then at common, especially teamwork training. Sticky note seals, not like terrible, but I mean a lot of Sigmar is trying to cut that otherwise. But no, I assure you, Westwill is playing them. But yeah, I think the more interesting thing is where the rare slots are going in this deck, because it really shows how much he's valuing those specific rares. Definitely 3 copies of Grand Endeavor in there at rare, really critical. And otherwise, there's a bunch of card draw.
That's disgusting. The 15 rares out of your freaking 100 card deck, 3 of them are Grand Endeavor.
Oh,
I hate it.
absolutely. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I guess that makes a little more sense in how he pulled it against me last, but uh Icebound Lake, which brings up another good point. I think some of these Icebounds are so good. I think the
Oh,
hardest thing about them is just mixing them with the other permanents that heroes want to play.
you're totally right. Unfortunately for our Sigismar, Nitracta, our Fen player, has the perfect sort of turn going
Yeah.
into a low resource Sigismar, having a Tinkerbell that sabotages with that arrow reaction. So they will be able to do the same thing next turn from reserve instead. And then follows it up with a double advance thanks to a rare Tinkerbell that also will be able to sabotage when played from reserve.
Yeah.
Meaning that Sigismar is going to be on low resources for the foreseeable future, if not the rest of the game entirely. Not where they want to be.
Yep. So the player hasn't switched yet, so Sigismar is going to be first. You gotta hope for something to get rid of that Tinkerbell. Um, off maybe not off the bat, but maybe there's not much to sacrifice in Westwill's reserve currently. But as you said, yeah, it's just gonna keep threatening to do it again.
I think the other hard part is, in comparison to a couple of the other Icebound cards, is that Icebound Lake specifically doesn't really give you a way to claw back card advantage. Some of the others let you like return a card from your reserve to your hand, or draw a card in some cases as well. But this one gives a character a sleep as well as making the Dragon Shade token, which can be really strong for the tempo gameplay plan. But in at this point, the Sigismar is more looking to stall the game and hopefully find a way to draw some cards. And the Lake's not going to help so well with that game plan.
Yeah. The good thing about the lake is it is target character, so you can sleep an opposing character if you need to. But the other side is there is rallying call, unless that was the only copy in the deck.
I would assume not. There should be 3. But yeah, Cernunnos, pretty good in stats for its cost, 3 mana, regardless, hand or reserve. And yeah, Sigismar already down to just 2 mana with which they can make their final decisions of the turn. I feel like it needs to be maybe something like an Ortis Attorney, or I don't know, something thereabout, some way to start getting some cards, but they need something good pretty much immediately. Interested to see what Fen will choose to do here as well. I could imagine just playing out this Tinkerbell for no value onto that companion side might just be really good. Would most likely guarantee them a progression, but no, they're valuing this resource gameplay plan. They said, no, we're going to wait instead. We're going to cash in the Tinkerbell the next turn and make sure we can sabotage something of value to the Siggy.
Very interesting card that we wouldn't have normally seen play out here from Siggy at this moment. The archivist.
The
So
format all-star monolith archivist. Yeah, you're totally right.
yeah, this was a good choice for casting.
Yeah, it briefly considered for Waru decks. Briefly, it was monolith archivist.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's one of the most underplayed characters in the entire game at the moment. If you have any other other ideas of what might be, at a similar low low play rate, let me know. But Westwill trying to make a dent in that in those numbers. I imagine whenever Westwill shows up with this deck, the number of these played increases by like 100%.
I want to see if this ever gets played in person because that would just be amazing. Because just even lining up a traditional altered deck of 39 cards, if you're sitting next to someone who's playing even just a classic Magic deck, like the Magic deck looks so big, but then think of like almost 100 sleeved cards. You just show up to an altered like tournament or something and just put it down.
Yeah, people will start thinking that you were intending to go and play Magic the Gathering Commander format, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, where's your Commander?" And you're like, "Oh no, I'm here to play Altered. I sat down at the right tables."
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sigmar is a commander, or I don't know what his rank is because he's Ordis and I don't care.
But yeah, no, regardless, at this point, like even though the Archivist is a weird call, I feel like the Fen is still pretty likely to just get rid of it with the Tinkerbell. Just anything that they can do to force out plays from the Sigismar and eat further resources of theirs should be pretty good. But again, it's also totally fine for them to wait, instead play something like a Cernunos, just trying to stall instead. And and instead just save that Tinkerbell for even more priority target at some point. And yeah, we see a new one into this Fen deck, the Snowman. Also pretty good in terms of stats, at least where it's been played into. It is in the water expedition, so it does not have fleeting. So it's just sort of an overstated body, and that's about it.
Dang. Yep. You hate to see the 100 card Sigismar deck not doing well. Um, as for the Archivist in general, I would think that it's better now in Trial by Frost than it was in Beyond the Gates because of
Yep.
things like Rare Mobile Armory, Sunisa, so on and so forth. AKA Batusai says they've tried to play it, but it was still hard, even at 8 mana with Glory.
Yeah, I sort of believe it. Hard to make it work, and even with Gulrang in a lot of cases, you're sometimes looking to just also have characters that can cheese like progressions early. I've seen common Ordis Trooper somehow look really good in Gulrang often as well. Um, yeah, it turns out Gulrang doesn't have to stall on all of the expeditions always. Just sometimes ends up that way. But yeah. Interesting Amali unique, also out from Nitracta, our Fen player. It is one of these mass fleeting characters, just with a little bit more effort than is required by some of the others. But notably, it also has the support ability that's also a massive fleeting effect, which is kind of sweet.
Yeah, that's gross. Bat Toes Eye. Interesting. Now I know. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out. Uh, seen your name a couple places, so love having you.
Welcome, welcome. I do my best to let other people pronounce people's names when I'm not confident. That way, no one yells at me. I will let Cole absorb all of that for me. But yeah, welcome.
I can do that for sure. Dang. Now, just seems like an unfortunate cycle here of the cards, and I don't know. I mean, is there a small step we have to worry about here from this Fen?
I mean, it's possible, honestly. Haven't checked the list. I think the one copy is sort of standard at this point. You assume that there is probably one. Sometimes there's less. Sometimes you get a Pandy Andy who swears by 2 copies. Um, but no, one's pretty standard. But there's also always pretty good chances that it ends up in mana over the course of the game. So, I mean, as a Sigismar, you're not playing around it. You're just doing what you can to survive at this point. If they have it, they have it. But otherwise, you just need a game plan that can survive whatever else is going on.
That reserve from Fen right now is just incredibly scary.
Yeah, it's sort of illegal.
Twinkle,
It's
twinkle, twinkle, twinkle,
exactly.
acapella, and then that Amale.
Yeah, when they're already adjacent on expeditions too, it's like the Twinkle Twinkles on its own could just go off and win the game with just that martingale. Otherwise, being able to play the Amale win on whatever side they would want with it, and then otherwise being able to discount further cards that they might want to play. Yeah, they've gotten it on multiple levels. Sorry, Westwill, I was excited for your 100 card Siggy, but yeah, nice job to Nitracta taking down the massive deck menace. Any games that you'd like to jump into, Cole?
Oh, let's see. Inspector Gadget. Let's see. Since we're getting close to when we want to start looking at some of the remaining undefeated players, let's see. Let's look at this one on table 16.
Beautiful.
Got another team here I don't think we know very much on yet.
I do not know much about them, although I do know that their team name is Bastion Baudelais. I could be pronouncing that slightly off, but should be that.
And I have most definitely, I believe, lost to both of these players this week. So
Fair enough. I definitely recognize having run into both of them on ladder at some point as well.
this is looking pretty good for the Tasia right here. Classic Aphanis doesn't really run too much to disrupt the reserve, does it?
I mean, it has Tooth Fairies, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's already been 2 played this game, so it's unlikely there's going to be another at this point. And so Tasia's likely going to have free reign over what they get to play.
Yeah, Tooth Fairy and Tinkerbell, for some reason, they just mold together in my brain, and they have opposite kind of ways they sabotage. So
It's just worth noting immediately how absurd that Lyra Thespian is from reserve there. Getting the 2 mana play for a 5/5/5, already going to put the Aphanis in a do or die sort of scenario for getting something out that can either overstat it or remove it directly. It looks like they're trying to go for a game plan this turn that would let them play out a Sneezer Shroom or another character and then play double Beauty Sleep to try to stall. But yeah, if there's another character for Tasia, it's going to be hard for that strategy to work.
yeah, there's the Aloe played to get stats, but also not reveal what's in hand. Very good. Tournaments always start at the same time, yes, but if you are outside of the United States or other areas that had daylight savings time for a period of about 3 weeks, we're like an hour off differently than we normally are. I think a lot of places in Europe have their daylight savings this Sunday.
This Sunday night, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay. So when that happens, we'll be more aligned around the world, besides places that
hmm
don't have daylight savings, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, they're always the same start time. There's the first beauty sleep. What does the Tasia have?
Love the decision from the Tasia not to get greedy and try to anchor the aloe vera and instead just keeping all their mana up. That did seem important. I'm wondering whether there's either removal or another character from them, and it's the other character. Yeah, pretty good. That should be able to do it.
Yeah, the Aanas is calling GG. Do you think that's because they can't do anything, or
Yeah, it's just that the sneezer shroom plus beauty sleep on its own is not enough. They need to beauty sleep the aloe vera. If they do that, they're not going to be able to outstat on the companion expedition, and they also have to prevent that one from moving in order to take the win. So yeah, that's definitely enough.
wonder? Oh, do we know what the last card in hand was because of some switches, or do we not know?
We I don't think we know what the last card is here for Ifanis.
See if it gets played just for funsies. Ah, sleight of hand. Okay.
Did make a close battle of it, notably. Helping Hand would have stalled there.
But that is going to take it for the Tasia. I played against a very interesting Tasia deck earlier today, and I think the player was like top 65.
Okay.
They had a meadow, and what they did was ramped to 5 mana, I think, or
Mhm.
four mana. Then tap the mana and play Leshy
Yeah.
after blocking anyone from moving, basically. So we were
Mhm.
stalled. So that Leshy was huge, and then just rolled it into Hydra. It was very cool.
That is one of the couple competitive Tasia builds I've seen at the moment is indeed built around ramp plus Leshy. Um, does have some weaknesses to it, but when it works, it looks really cool.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that was, well, why is this one
There's
still stuck?
one table remaining. Mbruza from Team After You against Shingao. It's a Lindway mirror on one of the bottom tables, and
Hmm.
it's really close.
Yeah, they are. So it looks like Shingao has a little bit more of a disadvantage just based on the terrain regions they are on, based on the amount of cards that we have here, and the Gift of Self gets played from Ambruza. Be very interesting how this one plays out.
Shingao notably has one of the more absurd Baku uniques in the game.
Oh,
A double discarding Baku that it is on arrow reactions, so you
yeah.
get to do it twice. You get to double discard your opponent twice if you do that two days in a row, which can be pretty sweet. And that card has been seen this game by Shingao as well. So kind of incredible that our top Lindway has managed to not only stay even in mana, but is ahead on cards in hand. But yeah, this game looking like it's going the actually no, I was gonna say it looks like it's going the way of our bottom Lindway, but the actually Bruza does tie it up with a progression of their own, and suddenly it's small step giant leap range for both players. And Bruza from Team After You will have the first chance to use it if they have it.
Yeah, what if that's what was left in hand for the bottom Lindaway, that one card
Definitely possible.
that did not get played? Well, no, because you would have played it and then you would have
There it
won.
is.
Yeah. So, because they had 6 mana exactly, but when they passed, didn't they?
I didn't honestly. I missed it. It went by too quickly for me.
All right. I think I'm gonna get you into a match here for round 5, and then I'm gonna take a real quick break. You
Awesome.
wanting to start on some undefeated matches,
I
or what
would
you
like
feeling?
table 5.
You got oh, okay, you got it. All right. Well, wait, but I'll wait for it to fully load up before I abandon you. Yeah, I was gonna say there's not an. Oh wow, I just got really loud somehow. There is not a AWOL on Sunday, but Altered Corner runs Ace on Sundays, and I stream those over on the Altered Corner Twitch channel, and then put the VODs on my own personal channel because I like to keep things confusing.
I
Alright.
always love playing in Ace. I can't do it this season because of the day change. Used to be on Tuesdays, which was great for me. Now a little bit less so, but still highly recommend people show up to play that if the time zone day of the week works for you. Really fun single elimination event.
You can blame Dexter for that one.
I blame Dexter for it. Fair enough.
And the vote only won by 1 vote. So, but we see a unique spindle harvester out here for the Aanas. Anything special about this one? No, not really.
Yeah, the special thing about it is that it is actually sitting on my desk right in front of me.
This is an illegal deck.
No. It's a legal deck. If you check the card ownership, it's a legal deck. But I have the physical sitting on my desk right in front of me. No, it's the spindle harvester that I opened. I love it. There are better, but it's pretty darn good.
All right, you won't have control of the mouse for a second, but you'll see the plays, and I will be right
No
back.
worries. All right, what can I say so far? Currently, looks like a pretty reasonable open for both players. Notably, there wasn't any spell coming out from the Aanas there to get a boost onto that Spindle Harvester unique. It is a leaves the expedition zone. If I have one or more boosts, you may return a card other than me from your reserve to your hand unique, meaning that that turn when it was played, it does go to reserve. It doesn't anchor from anywhere, just from reserve. So they would have been able to potentially loop a spell with it, but in this case, that does not come out as such. Lindway player does also have a decent setup, at least getting a Moonlight Jellyfish out. They get their own progression and show off that they're likely to be able to set up some pretty significant stats across both expeditions this upcoming turn, while also likely drawing a card thanks to that rare Moonlight Jellyfish effect. When you sacrifice it, if it has fleeting, you get to draw a card. So yeah, Lindway immediately playing that out, valuing the potential card advantage that lets them create. And this is the turn where making Maw with the Lindway hero ability will be free. So it's very likely, especially if that Moth Lantern's coming out, that there will be stats going on both sides of the board at this point. Interested to see from Runefolk here what he's going to lead off on. If he's trying to win a stats battle, it's likely that he's going to value this category in Mage Dancer. If he's trying to start a card advantage engine at some point, the Spindle Harvester should come out. But I'm also wondering if he's going to try to play around removal this turn and try to protect something that might be pretty important. So we shall see shortly, I assume. It's interesting. It's not every day that you see a turn one from Aanas end up with a Category Mage Dancer and a Spindle Harvester unique played out. Many Spindle Harvesters not being at 1 mana but being 2 cost in a lot of cases often prevents that sort of line. And it's also just expensive, doesn't really return anything the turn of. A lot more often you'll just see a Helping Hand, for example, paired with either a unique or a Category Mage Dancer. And with the rare Mage Dancer, that would also draw you a card at dusk. But yeah, in this case, it's nice to have a discount Mage Dancer in reserve, especially if you do find spells to go with it. So we're about to see here what Runefolk did find. So far, not showing any of that information, just putting out that Spindle Harvester into play. And yeah, we'll see. But it is the Helping Hand. Critical card there for Runefolk to find. And suddenly things are looking really good for the Aanas player, I'd say. It's going to be even on the Tumult again. However, the card draw at dusk there, super critical. This Spindle Harvesters sticks around and is going to threaten to get that fleeting removed from it this upcoming turn as well, thanks to that Helping Hand that we already see. And that Category Mage Dancer is also just sticking around, a persistent threat now, and just 1 mana from reserve. Crazy the stats that can put onto the board. Atosai in chat there mentioning or asking rather, how good is the Lindway opening of Chrysalis followed by Common Baku? Is it worth playing? I love Lindway. I think I'm qualified to answer this question. And I think largely Baku has fallen out of most Lindway lists for the more competitive ones. Common Baku is not really a bad card in the sense that when it's good, it can be very punishing. but there are so many decks that the card doesn't really do anything against, and if you run into something like an Aanas that plays a Conjuring Seal against you, any Baku you see just needs to go into mana. If a Sigmar has an Ortus Attorney opener, the Baku just needs to go into mana. If your Cojo opponent finds a Haven Serengar, Baku needs to go into mana. And in so many cases as well, even if you play it when it's good, it gets advanced over. And I think that's the critical problem with the card. For 4 mana, a play out of Lindway has to be really good in order to be playable. And in a lot of cases, it's just better to max out the cheap cards in your deck so that you're going to have more cheap sacrifice options and ways to get maximum information from your opponent before you commit to your own plan. Baku doesn't really let you do that. So for that reason, I would say oftentimes the Baku is not the best for it, but Chrysalis is a fantastic card in the deck at the moment. So that's how I'd answer that. Another super sweet Spindle Harvesters comes out. The previous one does get removed with the Off You Go there, but the Spindle Harvesters that's in play is perhaps even more absurd. So that's about to go crazy.
Yep. Is this one also in front of you on your desk?
No, I can't get it printed out yet.
Nice. Yeah.
The print on demand thing will be very nice to have when I have it, but that's not yet.
The whole Baku conversation, I think what makes Baku so oppressive in decks that do use it is it's also matched with like other annoying cards, more removal, sabotage after you, all of that, where it's just disrupting you as much as possible. And as far as I've played Lindway or seen people play Lindway, it's not really about stopping your opponent from playing anything.
Yeah. I think there's also a little bit of a dynamic going on where Baku can be really good, but it works at its best when you have other uniques that either have the Baku effect or Bakus that have double discard, like the one of Shingao's, which we mentioned earlier. And I have had a game against Shingao where playing Aanas, I realized, oh, I'm playing against the guy with this crazy double discard Baku that he's going to play. And I saw I had a Conjuring Seal in my opener, so I was like, cool, I will play that. And at that point, from the rest of the game, I was like, okay, I cannot lose to the Baku unique. And that's the strongest thing that's going on in this deck. The amount of resources that have to be committed into playing a card like that, oftentimes, if your opponent just has a card advantage engine, means your own strongest card doesn't really do anything. And in a lot of cases, it's not necessarily their strongest cards that they have to commit to that. It can just be some random common in some cases. So it can be hard to make that sort of strategy work. It's not impossible, but it's not as simple as playing a crazy unique and then winning because it discarded all their cards,
So the real question for this game is, why is Runefolk just playing a very straightforward Afanis with very strong spindles? What's going on here?
I mean, he's testing out the deck. He recognized correctly that I was playing Lindway. He's like, "Oh, can I test out some good uniques?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he's not undefeated in this event because he did run into a Sigmar at some point. However, otherwise, yeah, it's looking pretty good for him. I mean, in this game, if you do have that luck of getting all of your uniques in the first 15 cards of your deck with a good mixture of spells to match, it's really hard to beat Nephanis like that. Game's not quite over yet, but there needs to be like Boom coming out pretty much immediately and no removal for the Aphanis, but instead Aphanis has removal, and it's unlikely that there's going to be a Boom, meaning that this is sort of almost impossible as a puzzle to solve for Lindway, because no matter what, the Aphanis here is going to manage to at least return something of critical importance with one of these spindles at dusk.
So you may return a spell. I mean, it's going to return two somethings, right? Because there's two of them.
Yeah, but I mean, we see that there's at least a removal spell that the Lindway can still fire off here.
Oh, yeah, true. Interesting.
If not a better one, but yeah, it is just the Off You Go that we already saw. It's going to get rid of that anchored Spindle Harvester, and we will be returning something. I'm interested to see what Runefolk will choose to return here, actually. whether they're valuing either a discounted helping hand, being able to draw more cards with the magical training, or just having more removal with the Off You Go. If he's really trying to close the game out, I think Off You Go might be the choice here. Plays pretty reasonably into cards like Maw. The worry there, if he does choose something like that, is the potential of Lindway to play out a card like Chrysalis, which doesn't have a, or where removal doesn't have an easy time dealing with it. But could be, yeah, good options.
Nice. We do see the return of the Off You Go. I guess you get some credit for not running Small Step, but I'm just disappointed that it's not like Infinite Ganesha or something like that.
Infinite Ganesha, absolutely the latest newest meme from Team AQZ. Yeah, it's amazing what my teammates will talk about sometimes. I can hardly get my head around it, but I can get my head around these Spindle Harvesters. Notably, he was able to return 2 cards there. Not quite at dusk. One was still during the afternoon, because one of those Spindle Harvesters does have a support ability to return a spell from reserve to hand. So fired that one off, which left the reserve at a full capacity, just 2 cards there. But now at least Lindway does finally get rid of all of those uniques. The discard pile from Runefolk looks absolutely absurd at the moment, but hey, maybe Lindway then finally has a shot of figuring out a way to start clawing back.
Yeah. It didn't have to be leaked if you didn't say anything, but now that you both said something, now it is. Because I said, or something. So, congrats, you played yourself. Oh, I still have no fucking idea what it means, so don't worry. Well, I had my headset on. Oh, that's a good Tooth Fairy. I had my headset on when I was getting water and everything. Lots of talking, but where do you think it's gone wrong for this Lindway?
I think the point at which 2 uniques came out at the same time suddenly goes from like manageable amounts of card advantage in some cases where Lindaway can keep trading to it's very difficult for Lindaway to win on one side without the Afanas always having whatever is needed to stop that side as well, while the Afanas is guaranteed their own progressions. Um, at that point, Lindaway needs to essentially consume all of their resources to try to deal with the engine that's currently in play then for the Afanas, or break down the sort of snowball effect, instead of advancing their own game plan. And notably, this Lindaway list, it's not like hard control the way that other people have like viewed Lindaway in the past. The deck does sort of surf in this interesting I just say this interesting area where sometimes they can go a little bit aggressive when and try to push their advantages, sacrificing something like a Chrysalis to take a expedition progression, versus just leaving it around with defender and then leaving a body for the next turn, for example. And then there are some more control-y strategies as well if they need it, but it's hard in the situations where an Afanis gets such a snowball together simply because they have to consume all their resources just to break down what the Afanis is doing, and the Lindaway is not advancing their own game state.
Well said as always. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
It's so true.
I can't wait for the comments. No offense to Kohlrabi, but I love Keelan guy.
No. It's always nice being here with. I was gonna say the white monster, but now it's the Red Bull, the
Yep.
pink Red Bull. Nice. Lilac?
The Red Bull Rebel.
Ah, there you go. The
For
Red
some
Bull.
reason, I think I thought of a better name earlier, but then I had a headache after work because I had way too many meetings. So I took a nap, and I can't remember if I forgot or remembered it wrong or what. But now it's just Red Bull Rebel. So the I don't know if you've got them over there yet, but the spring edition Red Bull, the purple one is grapefruit and blossom. It's very
The
good.
sugar-free one, right?
This one is not sugar free
Oh,
that I
never
have.
mind. Okay.
I
The
think
the one I'm thinking of is sugar free.
Yeah, I think one thing that a lot of EU countries got before the US was sugar-free versions of the unique flavors.
Ah, okay.
For a long time, we only had the just basic sugar-free, and all of the special flavors were not sugar-free. So I think you can get this one sugar-free, but I don't know. It's the new summer flavor. It's very good.
Shout out to Blue, who does not consume caffeine anymore. I will consume whatever caffeine that he is missing then in his absence. But actually, interestingly, Lindway is suddenly putting up a board state that actually looks like it could potentially even things up here. And there is a sudden risk if Rune doesn't find a way to get through the small plus double moth setup this turn, um, that he could just get small stepped out the next turn if he's indeed playing a deck list that just does not have small step giant leap in it.
Yeah, there are some very good cards that I will give Runefolk credit for playing. This Joyride, and I do love me some Field Reinforcements. Same to the Lindway with the Mobile Armory. I think those three cards right there are all pretty underrated, pretty good cards.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love that mobile armory in Lindaway, but in this case, not good enough. The Off You Go does seal the deal there with that 1/1/1 Ordis Recruit that the field reinforcements makes. The two buffs from the field reinforcements itself being a spell. That's how it works with Afanis. When you play the spell, you get the 1/1/1. You get to boost the thing immediately. And then the second one from the Off You Go there. But it could have had any stats. As long as it had stats, it was enough to win there.
Yeah, I was when you were talking, I was looking at the discard and noticing that there was not a single Off You Go in the discard. So I was
Yep.
pretty sure we were gonna see that, and we did. But the field reinforcements, I always call it recruits. Field reinforcements first was great to seal the deal. Rune Folk in chat says Afanis is a fine deck, shouldn't be nerfed. While I think Afanis very likely has the strongest hero ability in the game, I think that it isn't him who should directly receive a change. Also, maybe kind of feel the same about Siggy, but I do totally agree that small step needs to be dealt with.
I feel like, frankly, Sigmar and Afanis are the best decks. I think that, frankly, the uniques for Afanis are probably the strongest in the game. Minus an occasional special Kokoba here and there. I feel personally that the Sigmar hero ability is significantly better than even the Afanis one there. However, I will admit that Afanis does have some more oppressive matchups outside of the Sigmar matchup specifically. That one is sort of rough for Afanis at the moment. Both decks probably at least a head above all the others, if not head and shoulders above the other top dogs at the moment. I would be fine with both of them receiving nerfs. I just, if they nerf Afanis without nerfing Sigismar, I would be very, very upset. They both well and truly deserve it.
Yeah, I think at this point they have to be really careful about how many heroes they change. That's why I'm kind of more in favor of, taking a look at Small Step or some of those uniques that they mentioned. And a lot of people do give more weight to the fact that Siggy can create a body for free,
hmm
whereas a Faunus has to have a body and then gets to boost it based on spells. But I just look at things like a Faunus compared to Basira or Tasia,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's them but way better.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I just think that the reason why I would still value the Sigismar hero ability higher is that there are many situations where stats matter, and there are just as many situations where they're completely irrelevant. And the thing that's interesting about it as well is the fact that you always get a guaranteed character with it actually lets you play eh, like a lot lower on cards. Like you're a lot less reliant on card advantage because at the end of the day, no matter what, you will have a character in play that threatens to advance on its own no matter what.
Yeah.
That combined with the fact that Ortis has just some of the best removal in the game that other factions would kill for. Bravos players, looking at you, I know you want access to that filthy Ortis removal. Yeah, it's pretty rough. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think both decks are just really good at the moment. I don't think there's necessarily an issue with there being two decks that are better than a lot of the other options. I don't think that it is so well and truly oppressive that it's not like this isn't like a unheard of thing with card games. Like there are S tier characters in Smash Brothers. There are S tier decks in other games. That's totally normal. It's just what is a little bit not okay, I guess is the question. And for me personally, I think that's probably 1 mana uniques across the board are sort of a danger zone thing. I feel like personally, I think, a 2 mana Spindle Harvesters, if a removal spell deals with it efficiently, that's cool. That's probably the way the game should work. If it's a 1 mana Spindle Harvesters that does the same thing, you cannot ever deal with it efficiently, and it feels bad because you have to, and then you lose the game. No matter what, you had the answer, you still lose because of it. That's not really a fun dynamic, at least as far as I'm concerned. But there are still a ton of really fun dynamics in general in the game. Uh, Speaking of which, the Subash that we're watching has
Yeah.
Lord Kelvin. I keep seeing this card now, which makes me so happy because I didn't see any copies of Lord Kelvin for, I guess, the first like month and a half of Trial by Frost, and suddenly they're popping up in various places, which is super cool to see. Um, but yeah, Subash trying to fight their way back at the moment. Nevenka's looking pretty good with this Ouroboros Inkcaster loop.
Yep. They had a classic moment in Nevenka though, where they rolled the wrong thing, being a 6, and they could have won the game if it was a 2 to a 5. Uh, and they didn't. So it anchored the Inkcaster instead of boosting it up to 1 stat over the Subash to win. Very, very interesting there. The Kelvin, I cannot abide by. I do not accept crimes against shrooms. So that card should be deleted, and Lord Kelvin should go to jail.
that's a reasonable take. And one, honestly, that I probably should have predicted from you, Kohlrabi. That's fair enough. I shouldn't have mentioned my liking of seeing Lord Kelvin straight to jail. You heard it here first. If you're playing Lord Kelvin, we should denounce you as a supporter of, crimes against the shroom folk. So that's too bad right there.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I bet you, when you played Baldur's Gate 3, sided with the destruction of the mycelium people. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying. But you were saying about the game?
what was I saying about the game? There's some cool cards being played. In general, the Ouroboros Inkcaster loop for Nevenka is a feels good sort of play, especially when you get some cards like Magical Training thrown in there. But sometimes you do run into the fact that you can start to get outpowered in sort of the late stages of the game. It's a really good early sort of synergy to set up, especially because it sort of demands getting broken at some point. And even then, if you find the third copy, you just keep doing it. It feels really good. But in this specific case, there's a few things that might actually really threaten the Nevenka here to just go over whatever they're trying to do. And this Walrus Scout actually, I believe it lets them. Yeah, okay. It at least breaks the Inkcaster loop. So it's likely that the Nevenka will have a chance here. If they do have a pretty big character or two, they will likely be able to win the game this turn anyway. But at least getting rid of that Inkcaster is a good start. Gives them some chances, some outs in the matchup.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing with the Walrus is there is no other way to find another permanent, and there is no other permanent in the reserve, or else that could have gotten even more interesting. Also realizing there's a weird typo on the Haven here where it has a hashtag symbol. I don't know if your display has that as well.
I see it too. You're right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think it was like that just the other day because
Yo,
I
hashtag
lost.
resupply.
Hashtag resupply. That's what's up. Let's see. So, Kickma has also been playing in the Ace events and collecting some points. So, I always love seeing people playing in multiple tournaments, kind of fraternizing throughout
Mm.
different communities. And hashtag resupply did not take it. The Navenka takes a win over Subash.
No, I agree there with Erlea though. Even better is hashtag moth. Moth is my favorite thing at the moment. Not just Nylum though. Moth Lantern. Lindway goes hard now. But regardless, that game we did see Nalastro win there on the Navenka, which thanks to Off You Go for delivering the win largely there. And yeah, I'm also, never sad seeing Nalastro win. A really strong player who's played in a ton of events over the last while. I recognize the name from like early AWOLs and Ace, I believe, maybe even as well. Could be wrong on Ace, but I know they're also a tournament veteran there, so happy to see them back and performing. But
Alright.
we're starting to close in on the last round. I believe there's just one match still left where Pandy Andy is fighting for his life despite playing one of the best heroes in the game, struggling. But we'll see if he can take down a Lindway player here and try to print his positive finish in this event. But then it will be round 6 where we're going to have our undefeated match and see who will take the win for this AWOL Wednesday.
Yeah, we I always hate when we're about to see a clock go negative, especially with how far this game is along. I believe it said it was created 28 minutes ago, and with the rest of the round completed, I would think this last 2 minutes on Pandy's clock is pretty close to the last minutes of the game. So, I mean, Embruza is very far behind on the tumult, but still nobody really has a good time when they lose to time.
That's true. I mean, there are some worlds though where even if Lindway is this far behind on the tumult, if they do get a double advance, they could just win the game out of nowhere. But
True.
it's not going to happen this game. Teamwork training here on the Maw is really good. Getting rid of the Maw is one of the better ways for Sigmar to fight against Lindway. And yeah, it looks like that coming out here. It's good timing. There's going to be nothing that the Lindway can do against the double Ortus attorneys onto that companion side. So Pandy does take that one down.
He lives another day within AQZ. All right, so we
True.
should have just one undefeated player going into round 6, right?
Correct, but they are going to have to win, notably. It is often the dynamic that if there is just the one undefeated player, there's often a player beneath them in like the 4-1, I guess, bracket there, who will have the same number of opponents' points at the end, which is the primary tiebreaker, followed then by elo or opponent's average elo. So Kaiki's in a position where, in order to guarantee the win, they will need to win. But there's a chance that even if they do lose, that they might end up in first place anyway. But we'll see.
All right. While we're waiting for it to load, there we go. Now we load, and it is a Afanis v Afanis. The situation of Axiom is interesting. I think that people are not playing it for reasons of complexity, but I will also not deny that they might need an extra tool or two to rise up to Lyra or Ortis.
Part of my problem is that I am very biased because I have one of the best Axiom players at the moment, at least on my team, and Freeloader. Um, really well known at this point, outside of just Cojo, but for playing Traced while Haven was completely suspended. And I feel like that deck is actually really good. It might be even more unique reliant than a deck like Aanas though, which does make it hard to get a bunch of people playing and getting results on. But the deck is very good, I promise you that. Um, Interesting seeing here though how this lines up then with the Nihilum on one side from Kaiki and helping hands being played out on these Katagiri Mage Dancers for our bottom Afanas to take a double advance there, setting themselves 3 expeditions up, but they have to cash in a lot of resources in order to do that. They don't manage to get the 3 boosts on either of the Mage Dancers that would be required for drawing cards at dusk. So now they're working in a potential position where, like another Nihilum, for example, could start putting the hurt on. Um, so yeah, hard to say who's really ahead despite a 3 expedition lead for Afanas looking pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't notice there wasn't enough boosts for even the card draw, but playing all those out, having to get rid of one of them and a magical training, yeah, that is definitely not ideal. What do we see here in this Daring Porter? So they get a resupply from anywhere. If they discard a spell from the reserve, sabotage, otherwise you. I love uniques like this, honestly. The otherwise, it's just so good. It makes it feel like a unique is less risky, I guess, because I know sometimes people when they get a unique that is very situational or just not very useful, they're not very happy. And I feel like at least Daring Porters or other uniques that have text like this, it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think you're largely right. In a lot of cases, there are some conditions that make things difficult. For example, like having to be behind on the tumult on certain expeditions can be really difficult if you're having a gameplay strategy that doesn't intentionally concede many of the early turns, for example. But a card like this, it's pretty often going to be useful in at least one of its 2 different abilities, which is pretty cool. And they are on arrows as well, meaning, yeah, that's from anywhere. Very nice. But
Ooh, good turn
yeah,
here.
Beauty Sleep coming out onto Flamel. I like it. It's going to give a double progression for sure over to Kaiki. Also prevents that Flamel from going into the reserve, though, which is actually sort of a downside at this point because something would have to get discarded then if it
Yeah.
had entered reserve. So, interesting. You have to do it if you're going to start to make your way back on in terms of the tumult, but yeah, I almost wonder if it might have been better to just even concede another expedition there and just further tax the resources. But I trust Kaiki's judgment. I do not know the exact build of Afanas. I'm not used to playing with uniques like they are, and if they say they need the progressions, they undoubtedly did.
Yeah, it would have been a very unfortunate decision of what to get rid of for the Aphanis if it was, well, for Hat Koishin, because I mean, either of these 3 cards are not cards you want to easily get rid of. The Flamel has that quick action if you absolutely can't play it. The Mage Dancer is just a really good card in the Faunus, and
hmm
the Helping Hand, of course, is going to keep the Mage Dancer around. If not, it's going to give something else 2 boosts with the Faunus.
Yeah, you're right. I think one of the things that I often think about in this sort of game state is actually how many critical cards have been burned through by each Afanas player at this point.
Hmm.
And notably, 2 rare Katagiri Mage Dancers having already been played out now. I mean, assuming that this last remaining card for the bottom of Faunus Koishin is not another helping hand, actually means that they're going to have a pretty low hit rate of having really good cards at this point. A lot of their uniques are not actually spell return either. There's a draw card unique, there's a potential resupply unique, but they're not quite the same as some of the crazy uniques that we do see from a deck like that, and that makes me worried that they're going to really struggle to find a way to actually come back in terms of card advantage. So for that reason, I'm really liking Kaiki's spot actually, even though, still that one spot in the expedition behind, but I think they might be able to turn the corner over, if not this turn, probably the next turn.
Yep, and it's about to be 5 cards versus 2, unless the bottom of Faunus does not mana, which I very often will not mana in Tasia to keep card advantage because it's a lot harder to keep card advantage. I feel Faunus doesn't do that nearly ever. Is that about right?
Yeah, I would say the best rule of thumb, especially in the Afanis mirror, is if you are the first person to miss placing a mana, you lose the game typically. Um, it's there are matchups where that does not hold, and sometimes it will just be more critical to have a couple more options in some cases, especially if you do have cards like an Off You Go in your hand, for example, as well. But in this case, this is a matchup where your mana is so ridiculously important, both because you need to be playing your critical pieces after your opponent has made decisions, and in order to do that, you just need to be able to spend your own mana on cards like Magical Training before you have to commit to the board. Another Flamel here is a really good card, actually, for Koishin. Flamel plays so well into Afanis as well as other decks like Sigismar, because it is actually difficult to remove. Although having a unique here is probably even better than the Flamel. This red is going to give some really good value, but it is definitely a worry, at least, the inability to actually remove these Flamels efficiently. That could give Koishin a good chance, actually.
Ooh, yeah, that red gets hit. It's still going to have the ability to play whatever is next for 1 less, but it's not going to get any boosts to draw that card. So with the Flamel over here and boosted, yeah, that's looking pretty good there.
Totally. I mean, it's notable that not only does it dodge Off You Go, but yeah, virtually the only card that can actually deal with it is indeed Beauty Sleep. It's unlikely that there's Banishing Gate. If there is, it's probably at one of, and it doesn't feel good really trying to fire that off on Flamels, largely because Flamel picks up spells when you play it, or is otherwise discounted compared to Banishing Gate. It's also a card that's making its way back a little bit into these Afanis deck lists because it plays a little bit better into the Sigismar deck. Notably, Tiny Jail ruins a lot of Afanis gameplay strategies, and Flamel is not Tiny Jailable on account of having a 4 stat in Forest, but also has a hard time, at least in the early stages of the game, getting enough characters in play to teamwork training the card as well, meaning that sometimes Flamel is just a really great option at common.
Yeah. Now, at least expedition wise, they are tied up. Bottom of Faunus does have a harder terrain matchup, but since that Flamel was put to sleep, it is contesting the companion side there for free this afternoon.
Yeah, you're totally right. Oh, and beautiful play. The Tooth Fairy here to
Ouch.
get rid of that red is a very nice start, but it is another great play from Kaiki playing out a Baba Yaga here. It's a play that, it does cost them one more mana than their opponent has already spent, which isn't optimal, but getting more cards here is absolutely nice, and it is a relevant play onto the board on its own. Like for example, if this Flamel just ends up getting played from reserve, it's likely to be able to outstat the Flamel by the end of the turn, and otherwise just should dig them towards whatever other further removal they need for other potential threats.
Yeah, very, very good. Only card to have in hand right now for the bottom of Faunus, that magical training. Wonder what they drew, if we're gonna see it, or if we're just gonna see another magical training cast.
Yeah, at least the play so far from Kaiki, the top of Thanos, essentially says, I don't care about you progressing on one side, I'm going to take the other. So I very much like the chance here to just fire off the magical training again. Um, main risk here being some combination of like beauty sleep plus an additional removal, but even that would cost all of the mana, so I don't think there's really much of a worry about that. And instead, the bottom of Aanas very much just incentivized to pick up as many cards as they can this turn and then try to fight over the next turn. Critically, they do have correct turn order if they just trade back and forth for a small step win. So that is an advantage that the bottom of Aanas has at the moment, and Kaiki might have to try to break it the next turn.
Yeah, when those magical trainings came out back to back, you being the Afanis expert, what's the decision here between common magical training versus rare? And if you
That's a really in-depth question, actually. I really love rare magical training. It's probably my favorite card in Altered, and I don't get to play it often enough. I think the more confident you are in terms of Afanis gameplay and the more defensive that you're willing to play, um, the better that the rare magical training is. It can be one of the strongest cards in the deck, absolutely. It's just often hard to find all of the rare slots between rare Baba Yaga at 3 of, rare Katagarin Mage Dancer at 3 of, and rare Magical Training at 3 of. And typically, you have to make some concessions there. Um, because Helping Hand is also a guaranteed rare at 3 of that you will always be playing, leaving you very few remaining slots. So typically, some sort of card draw ends up biting the dust there. And I think the answer to that is it also depends on the uniques that you have access to. You get to make different decisions depending on what you have access to there. If you have crazy card advantage uniques, you might not even need the Mage Dancers, for example, at rare. Just the commons can be really good then still. But all of that then affects the magical training count at rare common. I've also seen splits, but I'm not a big fan of them personally. But I do think that the rare plays very well into the mirror specifically as well, being another sort of conjuring seal effect. Conjuring seal also awesome in the mirror. However, in this case, one of the Aphanises is not playing it in the deck whatsoever in Koishin. Kaiki is playing Conjuring Seal as a 2 of.
Nice. Yeah, looking at Kaiki, there, as you were mentioning, the rares and spots, they have rare Beauty Sleep, rare Magical Training, and rare Baba Yaga, and the rare Katagarin Mage Dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Koishin, we have seen common Magical Training, rare Mage Dancer, and then we don't have too much else revealed at this moment. This unique does have card draw, but it's very basic just from hand, and it doesn't have any of the boosts from the normal alchemist. And now there's just a common moth to flame.
I mean, I do think that is one of the big upsides of the Nylum Withered Tree builds, is that oftentimes most of the build around for that gameplay style is a common build around. You don't have to play the Nylum at rare or anything, and Rime Frost is an excellent common as is. And that's sort of the foundation of that gameplay style, which is pretty good. But yeah, this additional
Oh, the
Katagiri
off
Mage
go at
Dancer
the
here
end. Yep.
is, I mean, I
The
think the Helping
calls for
Hand would have done it
GG
as
in the
well.
chat, and it looks
And
like Chile is going to take this and maybe, or wait, no, they were the undefeated player, so they
but
definitely are first, right?
it's worth noting as well
Yeah,
that,
that's what we were
that
saying
second
before this.
mage dancer there seemed
So
really good.
GG, congrats to Kaiki. As for different communities around the world, I know that Altered is super popular in Italy, Spain, France, and from what I've heard, the TCG scene in Italy is very huge and Spain pretty big. So I don't know if other companies don't value those countries when they distribute TCGs, and Altered does because it is in France, or it's specifically just really
Mhm.
popular there because it's close to France.
Yeah, good question. That was just kind of cool in that last turn seeing that Katagiri Mage Dancer come out.
All
Considering
right.
it was this dynamic where earlier on
See
into
where
the
we're at. Are
game
you still
there
there,
had been
Keelan guy?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I was gonna say you went weirdly quiet.
That's
So I don't know
strange.
if you
Okay.
muted.
Can you hear me now, though?
Wait, why can the stream hear you, but I can't? Can you
Ah,
guys
that's
hear
what's up.
Keelan guy? I'm getting levels from you, but I can't hear you.
That's so strange.
What the heck? Can you guys hear him on stream?
Okay,
Keelan
yeah, they
guy
can
is
hear.
talking, yes.
Alright, yeah. No, it was just interesting because
Oh
that
gosh,
Katagiri
okay.
Mage Dancer coming out there was really critical, but it was the sort of thing that had been set up for over so many turns of play. In the early turns, we had that dynamic where Koishin had to play out multiple of them in the early bits, and I was mentioning how that can be sort of, it's good momentarily, but over time that can become a big weakness, considering that they're just going to have a lot less density of important things towards the later stages of the game. And versus Kaiki has those at the critical moments where they were trying to turn the corners and push the advantages, take the double advance and win there right at the end. And that did look really strong from them. And just the chance that you're going to find those cards by that point of the game with as many cards as they had seen in the deck, very high at that point. So that was well done.
I am very sorry. I was not talking over you on purpose while you were talking. I hit the dial on my headset, I guess, and I could not hear you any longer.
It's
So
okay. I love you anyway. I just wanted to talk about Katagiri and Mage Dancers. That's all.
yeah, I am. We're pretty much close to wrapping up the tournament, but I'm jumping over to table 10.
Yeah, sure.
Ooh, and yeah, this one's gonna be a fun one. We have a Sierra that's actually in the lead, but we also have an Afanis that's got double tree, and the
Cool.
Sierra
Moth,
has
moth,
tree too.
moth. There's
Moth,
there's
moth,
so many
moth.
moths. There's 3 Nilums in play. This is a joy. I think
Yes.
everyone can celebrate this.
Keelan guy hardcore keeping the stream with voice. Listen, I was also talking. I was just
He
rudely
was.
not hearing Keelan guy.
It's okay. It's no stress. You were mentioning though, it's cool seeing players from all around taking it and communities popping up in different places. But yeah, I mean Chile has been really strong in the game thus far. Actually, really impressive. I think there's a couple other South American countries that are doing a really good job as well. Dart is Colombian, actually. I've seen a couple of those flags around as well, other than darts, but yeah, also doing pretty solid, it seems, with Altered. And Brazil, clearly, with some excellent teams there as well, really strong. So cool seeing the South American community keep showing up for these Wednesday AWOLs and doing great in them.
Yep. If you are in any of those countries we mentioned and you have insight into the dynamics in your country and how the local scene is in Altered and etc., would love to hear from you, whether it's in the YouTube comments or on Discord or whatever. I am actually usually the person answering the YouTube comments from the AWOL account. So if you see a reply, that's probably me. But Dart also plays in Ace, and I was taking a look at the points. There's a very interesting dynamic when you go from Swiss to single elimination. Where is Dart at on the Swiss here? So 3 and 5, or gosh, I always read this as 3 and 5, but it's not 3 and 5.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, so, that would be 3 wins, 2 losses, right?
hmm
So, uh, pretty good showing here in the Swiss. If they win this game, then they would maybe be on the 39 cards listing. Um, Once again, it's kind of different from Ace. Ace is the top 8 usually gets posted because of how it works out. And AWOL, I believe on Wednesdays is always the top 16,
hmm
but that could mean people with the same record get cut off if they are, a little further down, like 17, 18, 19,
At least
etc.
getting posted on 39 cards X and 2 makes it for AWOL. But as far as getting the invitational invite, you have to be top 16, I believe is the dynamic. But by the way, Cole, hover this Daring Porter unique from the Sierra. That one's really cool. Given that the deck's entirely built around having multiple landmarks in play, both of these conditions are essentially the same thing. If you control 2 or more landmarks, and if you control 2 or more permanents, that's a lot of resupplying, and resupplying works awesome in Sierra.
Yeah, this is nice. Uh, the permanent one you could also help trigger with a colonic heater, right? Which
Yeah, for at least for the permanent trigger, yeah.
yeah, I've seen popping up a little more. I don't know if this deck has it, but with that Daring Porter, that might be a very good inclusion, especially with some of the exhausted resupply. In the Discord, we do see the Ouroboros in here, and we see two of them. So two of them either got discarded to keep around other permanents or were sabotaged, removed in some form.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's neat seeing the puzzle that the Sierra has set up for the Afanis player at some point as well. There were some interesting decisions that Sierra had to make this turn as far as where they were putting their characters into play, and it honestly makes me feel like there might be another mechanical training in the Sierra's hand here even. Um, the reason why I say that is because typically you're incentivized to play more of your stats onto wherever the Afanis would deploy their own Studious Disciple, for example, or their initial character, but instead Sierra prioritized the other side, and I was thinking that they might try to stack more of the stats on top of the Studious Disciple to try to go for the win this turn. But it doesn't seem like they ended up having that option, which means that in this case, the Afanis will survive for another turn.
Nice. Yeah, I did not know that Simon and Tom have the AWOL listing set to anybody that has that record. I thought they did top 16, but yeah, the last list has top 35. So
Yeah, we
from
had
from Monday.
35 5-2 or better players on Monday.
Yeah.
Which is a frankly ridiculous number. Also, it's pretty hard to go 5-2, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because insider secret, you can kind of set the number of listings it shows and whatnot. So Um, I have for a long time offered to give Tom some help because he runs 39 cards basically by himself and does all that
Mhm.
work. So he worked out a way for Simon and I to lend him a hand. Now I have secrets and I can erase Pandy Andy's results from the website. So
I don't wanna be mean, but I have to say the joke. What results? Eh.
Uh,
No, I'm joking. I mean, as of today, if Pandy Andy with a 4-2 finish, he'll be on there once again, which is cool. But I think the problem for Pandy, like, I mean, he's suffering from the same issue that I am. If we're casting all the events, how do we get on?
Yep, that's gonna be my excuse also as to why I only have one single listing on all of 39 cards.
Oh
I'm just
no, really?
always I'm just always casting.
Oh man, we're gonna have to get that coaching session moved up as quickly as possible.
Listen, I've been editing the deck and
Nice.
we'll see how it goes.
We can make it work.
I need to stop freaking going up against Fens.
Is that a problem for Tasia, the Fen matchup? I'm sorry, my
Yeah.
Tasia inexperience is showing here, but that surprises me.
Yeah, there's just so much removal, and then if a fan is running small step, I feel like Stasia really suffers against small step, because before, not as much now, but especially in Beyond the Gates, it was not uncommon that I would win a game in Arena.
Mhm.
But yeah, all of those acapella trainings, the sleeps, the cloth cocoon, and then being able to cycle those things, it's just really hard against Fen for me.
Wow, Alphabet Soup did take down Nyla Mafanis on their Sierra build, so pretty cool.
Yep. Shout out to Alphabet Souped. Looks like this game they did find their brass bug hives that they lost at the bottom of their deck. Last game we saw, we are probably ending close here. What do we got? We got any last things to? Ooh, is
Well,
it over?
we
Over?
can yeah, it's over. We
Oh,
can
nice.
quickly go through the top 16 because it is exactly 16 players that are 4-2 or better. Um, so I mean, if you're down for it, I'll start reading out some results.
Yeah, we can have a little wrap up here, read up some results. I was just seeing if we had a game to jump into, but we do not. Thank you to everyone who played the tournament today and did it pretty speedy. I was expecting to be here until after 9. Now I'm gonna, after Keelan Guy and I talk a little bit, gonna go hop off, take a nice shower, relax, watch some TV. It's great.
Yeah, totally. No, it's thanks to Runefolk for not playing hostage build, so we didn't have to be here much longer than is necessary. Big congrats to Kaiki1, first place, 6-0 on the Aphanis build. That was the Nylum Aphanis that we saw in that last round there. So pretty sweet. We had 3 5-1 players: Fianturi 44, Harthor 44, and Victor Moda 94 from Team After You. And then rounding it out, all of our 4-2 players. Then we had Symbiosis, AQZ's Runefolk, Alzheimer, Psycho 244, HAT's Koishen, AQZ's Pandy Andy, Nitracte, Nilastra, DLA's Nyatito, M. Kamui, Sweet Danny, and Alphabet Soup as the final 4-2 there. So congrats to everyone who did really well in this event.
Yep. Round of applause for you. Also, just want to say Alzafer won Ace over the weekend and
Oh,
is not
nice.
in the Altered Corner Discord as far as I know and has not claimed their prize. So I
So if you see this,
am yeah, I'm kind of an ass where I feel like you should do your due diligence to do the things you got to do. But I have reminded or asked if people know where they are a couple times. So, I've done my part, but shout out
that's
to
fair.
all of them. Yeah, if you hear this, come get your prize. So
And then otherwise, over the next few days, of course, more altered as usual. Tomorrow evening, at least in European time zones, we have the AQZ Championship Series, which will be really fun. I believe I'll be joining in for analyst desk most likely, or potentially commentating. So you'll be able to find me there for that. But then otherwise, as usual, Ace on Sunday, which will be great. And then we'll go back into another intense week next week with, of course, AWOL Monday, and then our usual rhythm, just like today. So yeah, should be super good, super fun. Um, and then
who
otherwise,
who is casting AQZ
you
beside
know,
Keelan?
that's a great question because I don't think we've chatted about it yet. But you can always find an AQZ Championship Series on twitch.tv/Pandiandy. So my assumption would very much be that there will be indeed a twitch.tv/Pandiandy commentating. But there's often a surprise Runefolk appearance, there's often a surprise freeloader appearance, and other kind people in our community. So yeah, we'll see how it runs tomorrow.
I
But
was just looking at my work schedule tomorrow, and I should not attempt it. I always have like an hour gap with absolutely nothing during AQZ, and
I see.
then in the middle of it, I have a 30-minute meeting, and it's very very risky. So
I get it. That's brutal.
I will be in the Twitch chat though. I recommend everyone come hang out with us. Good news is that Alzafer is in the AWOL Discord, so is going to get that invitational role. As you
Nice.
mentioned earlier, the top 16 gets an invite. If Alphabet Soup did not get one yet before. Awesome to see that the Sierra obtained that invitational invite tonight from them. What was your favorite thing to see tonight, Keelan guy?
I thought there was some really clean Afanas play actually from some of the top tables, and notably some of the winning Afanas lists didn't have like the most absurd uniques either. Like they were good, but just not at that sort of crazy problematic level that we've seen in a lot of cases. So that was pretty neat. I definitely liked Kaiki One's gameplay there. Seemed really nice, just being willing to concede early expeditions and know that they would set themselves up for the late game. Thought that was really nice, but otherwise, I'm enjoying seeing the return of Lindway, regardless of the level of success that some of the players are having with her. I am a big fan of the hero. I think it's incredibly complicated to play optimally, but it can be really strong. So I'm happy seeing that more and more. But yeah, how about you? Did you have any standouts?
Yeah, we had some really cool decks. I like seeing more of the trees, more moth. Hashtag resupply was a good one. Really enjoy looking around at some of the other tables, and I'm glad that a lot of us casters have kind of adopted a procedure in doing that. A lot of tournaments, will only show the top of the top every single time back to back. But I feel you miss out on a lot of really cool decks, really a lot of cool plays. So I like that everyone's on the same page there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I like mixing it up as well.
and I like that we didn't see any nasty Akesha. So, and now we get to all go to bed on time.
We did see an Akesha building a Lindaway deck though, which was really cool.
Yes, it was very nice and respectable. So that Akesha, you're welcome to come hang out. You will not get the red thumbs down on BGA. But yeah, other than that, always great to be able to talk to Keelan guy. Go subscribe on YouTube. You have a video coming out soon, right?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple things coming out. I did a little stream earlier today for sort of an intro for the No Unique Championship. So that'll be posted on the YouTube probably within the next 24 hours. And then probably a day and a half or so after that, I'll have another video with some gameplay and talking about one of my favorite decks at the moment. So look forward to it. Yeah, on YouTube, I'm at Killon Guy. I'm now on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Killon Guy. So you can easily find me there. How about you, Cole? Where can we find you? What are you doing?
You can literally Google my name and you'll find me everywhere. Branding. Also, my article on the altered website will come up on the first page. As
Wow, I'm
for
amongst royalty here.
yeah, as for YouTube videos, I still owe everybody a goal rank follow-up video, which, maybe I'll make, maybe I won't. And I still have to talk a bunch of shit to Blue on an episode of Deck Swapped, but Altered Corner is where you can find me, or being a menace in the main Altered Discord. Um, and yeah, we'll see. I do post the Ace VODs over on my YouTube now, but I need to make something else. We'll see. I am not making anything for it, but there should be some cool videos coming out from a handful of creators around a rotisserie draft
Yes.
hosted by Elio. So definitely seek those out. It's been pretty interesting. So
Yeah, that's going to be good fun. Well, thanks so much for having me, Cole. It's always a pleasure commentating with you and hanging out. And thanks to everyone in the chat for joining in, having some fun with us.
yeah, see you guys all next time. I'll see you tomorrow in chat for the AQZ Championship. And thanks for playing. Thanks, Keelan Guy, for the great conversation. And we'll see you all next time.
Thanks for having me as always. Take care, everyone.
Bye.